My brother laughed as I showed up for Christmas, told I wasn't in family anymore. Next morning, he begged when I shut down his business overnight. My name is Elias. I'm 33 years old and haven't seen my family in more than 6 years. I didn't stay away because I wanted to see them. When my mother retired, I would call, text, ship birthday cards, Christmas presents, and even arrange for flowers. They sometimes responded with a simple thank you, and other times they did not answer at all. The distance between us began when I left the nation for employment. I moved to Switzerland first, then to Canada. I always assumed that when I returned, we'd reconnect. I anticipated being welcomed like someone who had been lost for a long time. But I was totally wrong. I finally got some free time this December. I saved up my vacation days, booked plane tickets ahead of time, and arranged everything myself. I didn't inform anyone since I wanted it to be a surprise. I was thinking about how thrilled they would be when I went through the front door. On the plane, I even practiced saying things like, "Guess who's home?" After 14 hours of flying, multiple layovers, and 3 pricey cups of coffee, I arrived fatigued but excited. I believed I was finally back where I belonged. But no one was waiting for me at the airport. At first I assumed they were just running behind. I stood at the baggage claim, watching others hug their families. The throng gradually reduced in size. 30 minutes passed, followed by an hour. I eventually gave up and got into a taxi. Looking back, I should have seen the quiet as a warning. I arrived at the house where I grew up shortly before sunset. The lights were turned on, and cars filled the driveway. Through the glass, I saw my parents, 2 brothers, their wives, and even my cousins gathered around the dinner table laughing. I could hear holiday music playing. I heard dishes and silverware clinking and people toasting. I knocked on the door. No one responded. I knocked again, but this time louder. Finally, the door opened. It was my Uncle Mark, with a drink in his hand. He looked at me as if I were someone from the past, then grinned and said, "Didn't know ghosts got invited." I stepped inside as he stepped to the side, without a smile, hug, or anything kind. The pleasant scene I had envisaged was nowhere to be seen. My mother looked up from her seat, blinked twice, and smiled tightly. "Oh, Elias," she said, as if she had suddenly remembered I was alive. "You're here." My younger brother Ryan laughed mockingly and added, "We moved on without you, man. Don't be in the pictures." "All right," I murmured gently, still in amazement. I looked around the room, expecting that someone would laugh and call it a prank. But everyone kept quiet. Even my father didn't say anything. They all kept eating and giving me awkward looks. My seat at the dinner table was gone. It was not moved. Rather, it was totally replaced by a cabinet. My name was not on the stocking over the fireplace. There was no present for me under the Christmas tree. It felt like I had been entirely eliminated from the family. First. Stood there, frozen. My mother got up and moved closer. She leaned forward and urged quietly, "Please don't start anything." I wanted to respond. I wished to talk. But I couldn't say anything. I just nodded. Then I walked out into the cold, closing the door behind me. That night, I checked into a modest hotel near the interstate. There was no Christmas tree or huge supper, only a vending machine burrito and the heartbreaking realization that I no longer had a genuine family. I did not message them. I did not post anything online. I did not even cry. I sat in silence. The following morning, I flew back to Canada. Nobody sent a text. Nobody called. The silence seemed to be louder than the words. For the next 2 months, I remained quiet. I went to work, ate, and then slept. But the pain inside continued to simmer, like a gentle burn. Nonetheless, something within me began to alter. That moment at the front door, being treated like a stranger by the folks who reared me, sparked something within me. I didn't seek vengeance right away. I just wanted tranquility. But when I reflected on what had transpired, I understood that they had not simply forgotten about me. They decided to push me out. That was not an accident. It was on purpose. I began sorting through old texts, emails, and photos. I began to see something I hadn't noticed before. They had gradually removed me from group conversations, organized family activities without my knowledge, and uploaded images with captions like, "Everyone's here." I recall transferring money to my father when he mentioned that he needed help fixing the roof. I remember buying a tablet for my niece to help her with schoolwork and never receiving a thank you. I had backed them from afar. I was the one they could bank on to be successful in life. They used to show me off, Elias the traveler and Elias the businessman. But now that I wasn't assisting them anymore, it didn't matter. The term that came to mind was not liked, but useful. So I made a decision. It was not emotional, it wasn't loud. It was plain and final. I contacted a lawyer I knew in the United States, who I had previously worked with on a commercial arrangement. I handed him a detailed list of everything I had helped my parents obtain over the years. Others of those goods were in my name, others I co-signed for, and others I paid in full based on their promise to repay me later. I wanted to know what I could legally undo. We spent the next 3 weeks gathering all necessary paperwork, including mortgage records, bank transactions, and property ownership papers. I had no idea how much I had done for them until I saw everything all in one place. I paid the down payment for the family's Lake Tahoe cabin. I co-signed for my mother's car, which was tied to my credit. Ryan's business financing enabled me to fund the entire project. Every dollar came from me. They didn't just put me aside, they constructed their lives with my money and then excluded me like I was a stranger. So, rather of being angry, I began the process with care. Steps taken quietly, legally, and carefully. A slight adjustment here, a pullback there. Everything is clean and said aloud. I wasn't trying to ruin anyone's life. I just wanted mine back. Around 2 months after Christmas, the first signals of problems appeared. My father left a voicemail. "Hey son, something weird. The bank says the Tahoe place needs a new appraisal before the loan goes through. Can you call me?" I didn't respond. Then a group text came up. "Anyone know why the business accounts are frozen? Signed, Elias." I didn't respond. I left it to read. The true mayhem began last night at roughly 10:40 p.m. My phone kept vibrating. I ignored it. After multiple alerts, I eventually looked at the screen. It was Lena, my sister. We hadn't spoken for more than a year. Her message was in all capital letters. "What did you do?" This was followed by 3 missed calls. Then came the storm. There were numerous messages of anger, fear, and desperation. Something had finally broken. The chain reaction I started had reached a tipping point, and I simply sat there, staring at my phone. For the first time in years, I did not relocate. I felt relaxed. So I didn't respond to Lena's shouting text, Ryan's 5-paragraph rant that began with, "What is wrong with you?" and finished with, "This is family, man." And certainly not to my mother's brief but frigid message. "You've made your point. Come fix this before it's too late." I sat and watched the group chat fill up with panic and inquiries. They were trying to figure out what I had done, who had told me something, why the bank was now preventing them from renewing their mortgage, and why Ryan's company account was being checked. Lena messaged again. This time, it was terrified, not angry. "Elias, please, Dad's freaking out. They're saying the house might not be safe. What's going on?" I slumped back in my chair, sitting calmly in my flat in Canada, isolated from everything. I drew a deep breath, not because I was glad, but because I could now see clearly. I was not being cruel. I was done. There is a distinction. But allow me to take a step back. You should know what I truly did, because it wasn't as dramatic as they imagined. There were no threats or illicit tricks, only properly applied pressure. Like removing one hefty plate from an unstable stack and seeing the others tumble down on their own. First there was the Lake Tahoe cabin. Years ago I co-signed on that house and provided the down payment so my parents could retire in a peaceful environment. My father had stated it was only temporary, until we sold the previous house. But the transaction never happened, so I continued to cover the extra payments. I had never given them complete ownership, so legally, half of it was still mine. All I did was submit a request to confirm my share. I wasn't forcing them to sell. I just wanted the record to indicate that a portion of it belonged to me. That simple move stopped their refinancing procedure. Then came my mother's automobile. I co-signed her lease in 2019. Her credit was damaged due to medical expenditures she never informed us about. The lease was still in my name, so I called the dealership and informed them that I would not be renewing or signing anything further. She had two choices: purchase the automobile altogether or return it. It wasn't emotional, it was business. Then there was Ryan's company, and this portion was genuinely satisfying. Ryan had implored me 3 years ago to help him launch a boutique workout company. I had sent Ryan $35,000 to assist him as a silent partner. There was no written pact, only trust among brothers. But I was not reckless. I transferred the funds through an old holding company I owned in Switzerland from a previous business. That meant, officially, his company had a foreign investor. So when I instructed my lawyer to officially eliminate that company's interest, it prompted a financial review. His business account was detected by the bank's compliance division and suspended while they investigated everything. He tried to phone me 3 times in a row. I disregarded them. Then he sent a voice message. "Bro, what are you doing? I've got payroll, I've got suppliers, I didn't even bother to open the next few messages. I knew there'd be more guilt trips. The biggest surprise came from Lena. She had always been the peacekeeper, attempting to keep things quiet. She sent me a lengthy, emotional note, claiming that everyone had been harmed by my overreaction. That word overreacting was like being removed from Christmas, as if I was making a huge deal over something minor. "You could have just talked to us," she wrote. "Why are you punishing everyone?" I stared at the message for a long time. Punishing. That is how they viewed it. Not defending myself. Not setting boundaries. Just punishment. I didn't respond. Instead, I scheduled an appointment with my accountant the next day. We discussed cutting off the last link of my donations to the family trust. For nearly 10 years, I had been making monthly payments to the pooled trust fund. They referred to it as a rainy day account, but it was not limited to crises. It included birthday parties, house renovations, spa days, and Ryan's second honeymoon. I have receipts to show it all. I instructed my accountant to liquidate my portion of the trust and return any remaining funds. That same afternoon, he sent over the paperwork, which I signed without hesitation. That evening, my father called. This is not an SMS call. I didn't respond. He called back and left a voicemail. His voice sounded tired and slower than I remember. "Elias, it's me. I really need to talk to you. We didn't mean to leave you out. Your mom's crying. Ryan's in trouble. You made your point. Please, can we talk?" I listened to the entire thing. I then removed it. Later that night, I received an email from Lena. She included a snapshot from Christmas Day. Everyone was at the supper table: Mom, Dad, Ryan, and Lena. They laughed and raised their glasses. My seat was still missing. Her message reads, "We didn't mean to exclude you. We just thought you wouldn't come. You never do." Then another line. "Can we fix this? Just tell us what you want." That's when I realized they still couldn't understand. They assumed this was about money, chairs, presents, and property, but it was not. It was about feeling invisible, about giving so much of oneself that you disappear unless someone requires anything from you. It was about stepping into your childhood home and being treated like a burden rather than a member of the family. So I responded. It remained in my drafts for hours as I considered sending it. It started with, "I don't want anything," and concluded with, "I just want to be free of you." But I have not sent it yet. Because I still had one more thing to do. This final move was not about seeking vengeance. It was about letting go so people couldn't dismiss it as if I was unhappy, theatrical, or going through something. Because I knew them. I knew they would wait for me like bad weather. They'd complain in private, mutter about my childish behavior, and be surprised when I didn't show up for Christmas the following year. After a few months, someone, most often my mother, would write me a kind little greeting. "Hope you're feeling better now." As if I'd had a rough week. That's why I needed to ensure it was final. The next morning, I made 2 calls. The first was to a real estate agent in Colombia, who had previously assisted my parents in purchasing the Tahoe cabin years ago. I informed her I was considering forcing a sale unless the co-owners offered to acquire my share immediately away. No discount, just the full market price. I still had the original purchase paperwork, which included my name. She paused. I did not. They can't say I wasn't involved, I informed her. My name's on the deed. I want what's mine. The second call was difficult. It was for a notary service. I'd already prepared a letter, not a message or an email, but a printed letter that would be mailed to each of them, Mom, Dad, Ryan, Lena, and even Uncle Mark, whose laugh at the door echoed in my head. It was just 2 pages long. The first page was concise and clear. It stated that I was officially breaking all personal and financial ties, effective immediately. There are no more pooled bank accounts, no more co-signed duties, there will be no more payments to the family trust. Any money or assistance they owed me was no longer owed, not forgiven, but just completed. I didn't want anything from them anymore. The second page took me longer to write. It wasn't filled with rage. I did not yell or blame, I just told the truth. I wrote about the airport and how it felt to step off a 14-hour flight only to find no one there. I described how I stood at the door of my old house and heard my uncle laugh at me, as if I were a stranger. Who got lost? I wrote about Ryan's statement, "We moved on without you," and how it impacted me harder than anything physical could. I mentioned the vacant chair at the table, the missing Christmas stocking, and how my mother said, "Just don't start anything," as if I were the problem for merely being present. Then I penned the line I had been thinking about since that day. You didn't forget me. You erased me. And now I'm doing the same. There were no threats or accusations, only the facts. I concluded the letter with, "I truly wish you well, but I'm not part of this family." I signed it, had it notarized, and delivered each copy via courier with a tracking number. They had already set off that night. The next day I opened WhatsApp for the first time in a while, and there were over 70 unread messages. I did not respond to any of them. Lena had emailed some old images from when we were kids. One was of us at the lake, wearing our ridiculous floaties. Another image shows me helping Ryan blow out candles at a birthday party. She included a note. "This is who we really are. Please don't throw it away." I nearly gave in. But then I remembered the one event that stung the most. Not the laughs. Not the missing chair. It was at that point that I stood inside the house, utterly silent, hoping and asking that someone, anyone, would glance up and say, "We missed you." But nobody said anything. Not even a glance. Just silence. Like I didn't belong. As if I were not a part of them. They had let me go a long time ago. All I was doing now was making it a reality. 2 days later the letters arrived. Ryan posted a story on Instagram showing a black screen with the words, "Some things you can't undo." Lena sent me one final message. No pictures or lengthy text, just, "Okay. I got your letter. I guess this is it then. I wish things were different." I did not open it. However, around 2:13 a.m., my phone buzzed again. A new message arrived from an unfamiliar phone number. I opened it, and my stomach fell. It came from my father. Only 4 words. "I talked to Ben." That was it. No punctuation, there's no explanation. But something about it seemed odd. I visited Ben's Facebook profile. I then checked Ryan's page. An hour previously, he had shared a snapshot of a hospital hallway. Dumensoy's quiet, cold. His caption reads, "Family is complicated. Sometimes you don't get a second chance." I froze. I wasn't sure what it meant. I wasn't sure if this was a trick, or if something serious had occurred. I stared at the hallway photo for a long time. There were no names or details. Just that calm corridor that reminded me of every hospital I'd ever been where someone had died. And I felt it despite everything, including the stillness, the fake grins, and the way they shoved me out. The old urge. The one that compelled me to correct things. To call. To aid. To go back. But I did not move. Not yet. I simply stared at the message again. I talked to Ben. The message simply sat there, like a silent bomb composed of words. No emotion. There are no details. There's no explanation. I spoke to Ben. Ben. My uncle. The same man who opened the door on Christmas Eve and laughed at me. The same dude who drove me to baseball practice and made stupid jokes in the batting cages. He was now reduced to a name, with no Facebook profile and hospital rumors circling about him. I typed a reply. What happened? No response. I waited 1 hour. Nothing. Another hour. Still nothing. By the next morning I had learned the truth from Lena. She called. I hadn't planned to pick up. I had no good reason to. But part of me became bored of not knowing. Elias. She answered. Her voice sounded scratchy and exhausted, as if she hadn't slept. Ben had a stroke. They think it started Saturday night. He didn't call anyone, and no one checked on him until Monday, when he didn't show up for lunch. I did not say anything. I just listened. They found him on the floor of his living room, she continued. Dehydrated, confused. He couldn't move his left side. Still, I remained mute. He's slower now. He's awake, but his words are slurred. She paused, took a long breath, and said, He asked for you. My mouth became dry. Me? Yeah, she replied. He said he wanted to talk, to make something right. A long hush followed. I don't think he has much time left, Lena added sadly. Dad's already there, Ryan too. I leaned on my kitchen counter, my heart thumping. I did not even like Ben. Aside from that vicious chuckle, I hadn't given him any thought. But something felt odd. This was not about money or favors. It seemed like it needed to end correctly. I asked her for the hospital's name. 3 hours later, I was aboard a plane. I did not tell anyone. I did not text. I did not post anything online. I just gone. The hospital was modest and tidy, tucked away in a quiet neighborhood where you could hear birds outside the window. I went straight to the front desk and gave my name. The nurse gave me a kind glance and directed me to room 204. When I walked in, the lights were low. The curtains were halfway open. Machines beeped quietly in the background. Uncle Mark lay in bed, skinny and pallid. He gently turned toward the door. His eyes brightened up slightly. Elias, he muttered. I froze for a second before walking inside and pulling up a chair. I did not touch him. I did not hug him. I didn't think you'd come, he murmured, each syllable sounding like it cost him a sliver of power. Neither did I answered. There was a lengthy silence, only the machinery humming between us. I messed up, he finally admitted. That night. Christmas. I had a quiet laugh. I wasn't sure what else to do. You walked in and everyone froze, according to him. I was drunk. I said something cruel to break the tension. But it just made things worse. He coughed weakly. I still did not speak. I heard about the trust, the cabin, the business stuff. I get it. I don't blame you. He sniffled. You always were the one who kept receipts. Another pause. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just wanted to say this before it's too late. I saw you, kid. Always did. Even when they didn't. My throat felt tight. But I did not move. I know it's late for that, he said. We sat silently for a while. I stared at him, the same man who had once taught me how to replace a tire, now a shadow of himself. Despite everything, I could not bring myself to dislike him. When I finally rose up to leave, he grabbed my wrist. I'm proud of you, he muttered. Don't let them pull you back in. I nodded. Then I walked out. Outside the room, I ran into Ryan. His eyes expanded. You came? I didn't respond. He looked weary, with a disheveled sweatshirt, oily hair, and stress written all over him. I didn't know it had gotten this bad, he remarked quietly. With you, with us. I raised an eyebrow. You told me we moved on without you. That wasn't heat of the moment stuff. That was something you'd been thinking for a while. He grimaced. I thought you didn't care anymore. You were always gone traveling, working. I figured you were just better than us. I was trying, I said, my tone rougher than I intended. Trying to stay in touch. You all didn't just stop calling. You erased me. And I still sent gifts. I still showed up. Ryan stared at the floor. I screwed up, he said. No, I responded. You all did. Together. He nodded slowly. Can we fix it? That was the question they all wanted to ask. I gave it serious thought. I sat with it. Then I eventually replied, no. Ryan's eyes widened. I don't hate you, I clarified. But I'm done hoping to be noticed. I'm done being the backup plan for people who treat me like I don't belong until they need something. So that's it. For now. Okay? Ryan seemed to want to say more, perhaps argue. But he did not. He simply stepped aside and let me pass. That evening, before leaving, I paid a visit to my childhood home. Just one more time. No one was home. They were probably still in the hospital. I did not go inside. I simply stood on the sidewalk, gazing at the front door. The same one I used to run through on my birthday, complete with skinned knees and balloons. Then I turned to walk away. When I returned to Canada, I did not cry. I did not become angry. I simply moved on with my life. I closed down all joint accounts. I sold my Tahoe property to a neutral third party. There's no drama. Simply a tidy transaction. Around a month later, Lena sent another note. She claimed Ben died quietly. She informed me that Dad cried for the first time in years, that Mom had been quiet. Ryan closed his business. She also stated that she understands why I did what I did. I thanked her. Then she questioned if I would ever return, even for a coffee. I told her maybe. But deep down, I already knew the answer. Not because I was upset. Not out of bitterness. But for the first time, I was not simply surviving in someone else's story. I was finally living alone. My family kicked me out on my birthday after I refused to pay my brother's $100,000 debt. So I walked away, blew up their reputation with one email. Happy birthday, Liam, my mother began, her voice upbeat and phony, as if she hadn't just guilt-tripped me an hour before for not volunteering to pay off John's vehicle loan. I sat at the end of the dining table, a slice of store-bought cake in front of me, and half-melted wax dripped from a crooked 30 candle. My father slouched across from me, one arm lazily stretched over the chair and the other holding a beer. My brother John, 28, unemployed and evidently averse to responsibilities, was scrolling through his phone with one hand while messaging with the other, using his new iPhone, which I had purchased. So I said, clearing my throat. My heart was racing, but I tried to remain calm. We need to talk about the money. Dad grunted. Mom blinked. John did not look up. I can't keep covering everything, I admitted. I'm trying to build a future for myself. I've been paying the mortgage here, covering utilities, groceries. I paid off John's second DUI fine last year. I need to cut back. John looked up. You're acting like it's charity. I stared at him. It is. He laughed. Wow, okay then. Dad leaned forward, eyes furrowed as if I had just offended the Pope. Then start with your brother's six-figure debt. That's the real issue, isn't it? Mom gave him a sideways look, as if she wished he hadn't said it aloud. John became quite still. I'm not paying that, I replied quietly. That's not my responsibility. The room got frigid. Nobody moved. Dad leaned back, his lips twisting into a scowl. Well, she replied. Guess we know where you stand. When I returned from work the next day, my belongings, including my clothes, books, tools, and the laptop I used to freelance, were neatly arranged on the porch. The locks had changed. There was a note pinned to the door. Consider what you've done. That is all it said. I remained there for quite some time, marveling at my mother's handwriting, which was crisp, exact, and unmistakable. I did not knock. I did not yell. I did not cry. I took a big breath, grabbed my stuff, and walked away. I then scheduled the message. The following morning, everything changed. To understand how we ended up with a birthday eviction and a note that felt like a slap, you have to go back 10 years. I was 20 years old when John totaled his first car. Of course they were drunk. Mom cried. Dad screamed. And I, the golden oldest son with a steady job and no record, paid the tow fee and gave him a $3,000 loan for repairs. He never repaid it. It was supposed to be a one-time occurrence, but it somehow established a pattern. When John dropped out of college, it was my responsibility for not assisting him with his studies. When he lost 3 jobs in a year, I received a lesson on how some people simply struggle more. When he overdrafted his account, Mom would call me, soft and guilt-ridden. "Liam, sweetheart, he's your brother. Can't you just cover it this once?" I always did. I paid the rent when John was evicted. I paid the insurance for his car, which he drove to parties while I walked to work. I bought groceries, paid our parents' property taxes when they fell behind, and still managed to pay for night classes to earn my electrical system certification. All the while, John spent his days in the basement, working on music and doing nothing productive. What is the worst part? He did not even pretend to be grateful. He acted as if it was owed to him. "Liam's doing great," he'd add, waving his hand as if I were a faceless ATM. "He's got it. That's what big brothers are for." My parents ate it up. I could have moved out. But every time I mentioned it, Mom would get teary-eyed and say, "This house only feels like a home with you in it." Dad would remark, "Don't be dramatic," and remind me that I only paid a percentage of the costs, such as the phone plan, which wasn't enough. "What about John?" He'd smirk and say, "Why leave when you've got it so good?" Yes, I had it nice. I was working 60-hour weeks and barely seeing daylight, while my brother borrowed money from me to buy new headphones. I was skipping lunch to save money, while Dad used my paycheck to repair the air conditioner and encouraged me to be thankful I didn't have to deal with a landlord. It all boiled over 2 months before my birthday. I'd just gotten home from a 14-hour shift when I saw John preparing a party. My gaming PC, which I had built piece by piece over 5 years, was set up in the living room and connected to his sound system. His friends had passed out on the couch. Beer bottles cluttered the floor. My keyboard was sticky. I did not yell. I just unplugged everything and returned everything to my room. The next morning, Mom gave me a lecture. "You embarrassed him," she continued, her tone caustic. "His friends saw you storming around like a maniac." "They were using my stuff," I explained. "It's not just your house," she retorted. "Everything here is shared." The term shared struck me like a slap. Shared like the mortgage I paid, the groceries I purchased, and the electricity payment that physically came out of my account. That night, I reviewed my finances. I was really near. With just a few more months of savings, I'll be able to leave for good this time. Then John had a wonderful new business idea: cryptocurrency trading. He invested $25,000 from his school loans, which he had no intention of repaying, and lost everything in 2 weeks. He blamed the app, the market, and his buddies. He then turned to me. "You could spot me 10 grand, he remarked, as if he were requesting a ride to the shop. "Just to get me back on track." I laughed. And for the first time in years I declined. That's when the tone changed. I wasn't dependable anymore. I was selfish, ungrateful, elitist. "You think you're better than us now?" Dad inquired one night after supper. "Just because you've got a little money in the bank?" "I'm not better," I said. "I'm just tired." The next morning, John sent a tweet that he assumed I wouldn't see. It said, "Some people only give when they believe they can control you. Cut them off and let their true face appear." He received over 300 likes. I didn't say anything. Then came my birthday, and I foolishly and naively believed that we may be able to keep things amicable. A calm dinner. A tiny cake. There's no drama. Instead, I faced an ambush. Dad kept his eyes on me the entire time, daring me to bring up money. John is cracking jokes about how I should open my trust money, which does not exist. Mom smiled too brightly, as if she could keep everything under control with enough forced enthusiasm. The dam broke when I eventually declared, "I can't keep paying for everything." "Then start with your brother's six-figure debt," Dad remarked, not as a joke or a challenge, but as an expectation. And when I replied no, they did not dispute. They simply threw me out like rubbish. But they made a mistake. They forgot who taught me to be silent, to be patient, to never react. This time, I had a plan. I did not respond to their note. I did not knock. I did not text. Did not cry. I just scooped up my things, threw what I could into the back seat of my old Toyota, and drove to the cheapest motel I could find. One of those wayside motels where the air smelled like cigarettes and the vending machine ate your money without hesitation. I sat at the edge of the bed, the note still crumpled in my fist. "Consider what you did." I did. I thought long and hard. Then I scheduled the message. See, throughout the years, I've learned a few things, one of which is that each family has its own tale, or folklore that they tell themselves. Ours went like this. Liam is dependable. Liam is always helpful. Liam always shows up. And because he always shows up, we can do whatever we like. They had no idea I'd been recording everything for the past 2 years, including every Venmo request, invoice, transfer, every time I helped someone out. I saved the receipt. Every passive-aggressive message, every guilt trip, every time they stated, "You're being dramatic," when I begged for boundaries was recorded, saved, and dated. Then there was the letter I wrote months ago, before my birthday, when I first considered leaving. It was not a farewell letter. It was a confession about everything. How I paid off my second mortgage without informing them since the bank called me, not them. How I discovered John had stolen my identity to apply for a $15,000 personal loan, which was denied, thank God, but the inquiry remained on my credit report. How my parents knew and advised me not to seek charges. "Family sticks together," they remarked. I was stuck. Until I did not. That morning, after I was kicked out of the house I had paid for, I hit send. I didn't simply send it to them. I forwarded it to our entire family. My godmother in Tampa, Uncle Rob in New Jersey, my mother's relatives, my father's siblings, their church group, and everyone else. Along with the receipts, screenshots, bank records, text messaging, vocal recordings, everything is properly ordered. I even attached a spreadsheet titled, "What Liam Actually Paid For." It became viral within our family in less than an hour. By lunchtime, my phone had 26 missed calls from Mom and 8 from Dad. John did not call. He sent one text message. "You didn't have to do that." It was frigid. I didn't respond. At 12:37 p.m., my Aunt Sylvia, whom I hadn't seen in years, sent me this message. "Good for you. I've always known they were using you. I'm proud of you, honey." Then came the fallout. Apparently, my parents' reputation in their small suburban bubble meant more to them than I realized. The picture of the ideal, close-knit, morally upright family was destroyed. People began asking questions. Why was Liam paying the bills while John was on vacation? Why did the note on the door resemble something from a Lifetime movie? Why did John get new headphones, footwear, and tattoos while unemployed? Why did Liam reside in the basement as if he were a tenant, despite paying for everything? Dad tried spinning it. "We were giving him structure," he informed a relative. "It was all agreed upon." Wrong move. I had attached a recording from the night they kicked me out. I'd been recording with my phone, which I had placed into my jacket pocket before supper. The voice note was very clear. "Dad. Then start with your brother's debts." Me. "I am not paying that." Dad. "Now get out." Mom. "Consider what you did." They could not spin that. The kicker? I also reported a stolen identity case. I'd let it slide the first time. No more. When the police arrived at the house to question John about the bogus loan attempt, things became heated. A neighbor captured everything on video. Angry voices, a slammed door, and John ranting something about how he deserved a break. Someone, perhaps my mother, yelled, "We told you not to make this worse." That clip was shared on the local neighborhood Facebook group. And just like that, the family that used to gossip about other people's dramas became front-page news. I didn't see it happen. I was too busy moving into my new downtown apartment, a one-bedroom above a flower shop. Quiet. Sunlight in the morning. A kitchen that did not smell of previous disputes. I paid the deposit with money that I should have saved all along. That night, I sat on the couch with no TV, only my laptop and some takeout, and watched the madness develop from afar. They tried calling me again. Dozens of times. When I did not respond, Mom showed up at my workplace. She waited in the lobby, her eyes red, carrying a Tupperware of my favorite dish as if it had been used for years. I met her outside. She opened her mouth, but I interrupted her. "I'm not coming back," I explained. "Calm, even cold, Liam," she murmured. "You're tearing this family apart." I laughed. "No," I replied. "I just stopped holding it together." She flinched, and for once, I did not feel guilty. That was the moment everything changed. Not only the familial dynamic, I could finally see them clearly. Not like powerless parents, not as a struggling brother, but as people who had made decisions repeatedly. They were now experiencing the repercussions. It's strange how silence can seem louder than screaming. For the first time in my life, I wasn't woken up by the sound of John's music rattling the drywall, or Dad throwing a tantrum while wearing a polo shirt. I wasn't avoiding Mom's passive-aggressive moods, waiting for the next emotional minefield. Instead, I experienced quiet. In the morning, I made coffee without checking to see if someone had used the last of the milk. I could leave my wallet on the counter without worrying that it would go gone. I wasn't required to justify every purchase, boundary, or breath. Nobody asked for money. Nobody requested explanations. Nobody texted me just to manipulate me. It was unsettling at first. I kept expecting the silence to cease, as if I'd walk in the door and find John sprawled on my couch, shoes on the cushions, begging if I could locate him again. But they never arrived. The calls did not stop at first. Mom left lengthy voicemails, her voice weak and laced with guilt. "Liam, this isn't you. You've always been the strong one, the helper. Please don't let pride ruin our family." Dad sent only one text message. "You should be proud of yourself." I did not respond. Eventually, the communication slowed and ceased. 3 weeks after moving out, I received a letter, handwritten, from John. It was surprisingly brief. "I am aware that I made a mistake. I was only doing what they always allowed me to do. But now everything has turned against me. Mom and Dad are in a mess. Nobody talks to us anymore. You blew everything apart. I hope it was worth it. No apologies, only blame." That explained all I needed to know. I didn't respond. Instead, I set to work restoring what they attempted to take from me. I signed up for a coding boot camp, which I'd wanted to do for years but had put off because we need help with the bills this month. I began freelancing in the evenings, saving for the future I desired, not the one they forced me to fund. I found genuine friends, people who asked for nothing except honesty, people who were more concerned with who I was than with how much money I made. I joined a local climbing gym. I rediscovered my affinity for movement and risk, for pushing myself on my own terms, not hauling people who refuse to move. Therapy was also helpful. It turns out that years of being the fixer leave unseen marks. My therapist referred to it as parentification, which occurs when a youngster is expected to act emotionally and financially like an adult. She helped me realize that I was never selfish. I was fatigued. Meanwhile, in the old house, they imploded. Mom needed to go back to work. She despised it. She'd spent the last decade playing home manager with someone else's money. Mine. Dad began drinking more. He apparently got into a heated argument with a neighbor who inquired about Liam's circumstances. According to what I've heard, John has finally landed a job at the gas station. It lasted for 6 days. He then blamed the manager, as he always does. Extended relatives withdrew. They had seen too much. I heard too much. The evidence did not support the myth of our happy little family, and I didn't care. For the first time in my life, I wasn't attempting to repair it. I did not go to Thanksgiving. I spent it with a friend's family, who joked at the dinner table rather than walking on eggshells. I brought pies. They called me family, and they meant it. At Christmas, I received a card from my godmother. Inside was a brief note. You deserved better. And you finally claimed it. I am proud of you. I sobbed while reading it. Not because I was sad, because for the first time, I felt understood. You know what happens after you start fire? In your previous life? Nothing. There are no big explosions. No last-minute reconciliations. Just silence. And it is the most beautiful thing I have ever heard. For the first time in 3 decades, my phone did not ring with guilt-inducing texts or last-minute money pleas. There were no urgent calls about John losing his license, Dad needing help with his taxes, or Mom crying because we no longer feel like a family. They expected me to crawl back. They always have. They assumed I'd feel guilty. They expected me to feel alone. But this is what happened. I felt free. I could breathe. I could stand in my own space, which I had paid for, furnished and cleaned, without fear of someone stealing my food, taking my keys, or threatening my future. I'd been carrying my family on my shoulders for so long that I forgot how it felt to walk erect, to live for oneself, to be unnecessary. They used to refer to me as the family's backbone. No, I was the fuse. And now that I'm gone, the fire they kindled around me can only spread back to them. 2 months after the incident, I ran into John. Of course, it was in a petrol station. He was behind the counter with a crooked name tag. Eyes are sunken. He still had that phony swagger, but it looked worn out, like a poor imitation of a better version of himself. Liam, he answered, smirked. Didn't expect to see you in town? I just nodded. He leaned in. You know you really screwed things up for them, right? I blinked. You mean when I stopped paying your debt? He shrugged. They're still dealing with the fallout. You really made a mess. I looked him dead in the eyes. You're mistaking me cleaning up my life for ruining yours. Then I paid for my gas and left him gaping at the door, as if he couldn't believe the ATM had walked away. He still doesn't understand it. Neither of them do. Because people like John do not learn from the repercussions. Not till the funds run out. The spotlight fades. And I'm not going to remain around to see how that lesson plays out. Here's what no one tells you about leaving a dysfunctional family. The distance is not what hurts. It is the understanding that you have never been loved unconditionally. You were useful. Valued for your silence, sacrifice, and bank account. But love without respect is not love. It is leverage. So, when people ask, would you ever speak to them again? I do not hesitate. Because I finally value myself more than their approval. I used to want their affirmation as much as oxygen. Every good grade, every promotion, every loan I repaid. A fervent hope that this time they would notice me. However, they only saw what I could do for them. Never knew who I was beneath it. I now see myself. A man paid off 3 mortgages that were not his. A man stayed up late to tutor his brother, who never tried. A man who kept the lights on in a home that always made him feel like a visitor. And finally, a man declared, no more. I created a new life from the ground up. This time, the basis is not based on guilt or responsibility. It is serene. It is a decision. It is mine. I spend my weekends hiking, reading, and attending classes. I'm learning photography, which I've been putting off for years due to other pressing financial obligations. I'm dating someone who does not need saving, who asks about my day, who doesn't call me selfish for setting boundaries. Sometimes late at night, I lie in bed and reminisce about the youngster I used to be. The one who walked gingerly through his own home, who handed over his paycheck in a ritualistic manner, who believed that if he worked hard enough, they would love him the proper way. And I whisper, you got out. You made it. You don't owe them silence anymore. Let them chatter. Allow them to twist the story. Let them label me ungrateful, theatrical, and cold. Because here's the truth they'll never speak in public. Without me, their system failed. Their falsehoods were ineffective without me. Without me, the truth eventually emerged. Loud, raw, undeniable. And I didn't even need to yell. I just walked away. And occasionally, the quietest act of disobedience is keeping the door locked. My parents left me with my grandparents for my siblings' sake. Years later, I planned a special dinner, but they prioritized my brother's gift instead. I'd like to make it clearly obvious that I've never been the favorite child in my family. This is not an exaggeration or a fake idea that I made up. It is a very genuine and major component of my existence. Growing up, my parents never concealed the fact that my younger brother's life was more important to them than mine. For reference, my mother became pregnant with my brother only a year after I was born. While it was not a planned pregnancy, my parents were pleased with the prospect of expanding their family. However, their delight swiftly changed to dread when physicians did several tests and revealed that the baby may have major health difficulties. These were not trivial worries. They were serious enough that my parents had to make the sad decision to terminate the pregnancy. They eventually agreed to continue, fully aware of the potential hurdles. When my brother Jackson was born, their concerns were realized. He had serious heart abnormalities that necessitated prompt treatment. My folks were distraught. Jackson needed many procedures to survive and spent extensive time in the hospital. His health became the primary focus of my family's life, and this transition had a significant impact on everything, including how I was treated. My parents were obsessed with worry, love, and guilt about Jackson's health. While I recognized that they were dealing with a really tough situation, it also meant that I was largely marginalized. My parents were too worried with Jackson's medical demands, so I stayed with my grandparents while he was in the hospital. During this time, they paid me just occasional visits. Even at such a young age, I tried not to hold it against them. I recognized that Jackson's health came first, and my parents were trying their best. Besides, I really liked my time with my grandparents. They were nice and attentive. Every morning, my grandma made me breakfast, and we spent hours doing simple things around the house, like baking cookies or taking care of her garden. My grandfather used to take me to the park and read me stories. They filled in the gaps left by my parents' absence, becoming almost like a second set of parents for me. Jackson's condition gradually improved, and my parents were allowed to bring him home from the hospital. You'd assume this would be the point where my parents would come to get me, where they'd like to reconcile the family. But no, it was not the case. My mother, still burdened by the stress of Jackson's recuperation and the effort of caring for a sick child, decided she was not ready to take on the responsibility of 2 children. She informed my grandparents that they would need to continue caring for me for a bit longer. My father, who was preoccupied with work and attempting to balance Jackson's medical expenditures, also provided little assistance. My grandparents, who genuinely enjoyed having me around, didn't say anything when my parents opted to leave me with them for a longer period of time. They were delighted to keep me with them. While I was saddened to learn that I would not be returning home, I was not devastated. I was still in a location where I felt loved, which reassured me. The true issue arose when years passed and my parents still showed no desire to bring me back home. What was supposed to be a temporary arrangement lasted eternally. I could only visit them every other weekend, and that wasn't assured. My father was sometimes too busy at work, and other times they simply did not make an effort to visit. My grandparents were my primary caregivers, while my parents felt more like tourists than parents. When I first started school, my grandparents took care of everything. They dropped me off in the morning, picked me up in the afternoon, and were there from the moment I awoke until I was tucked into bed. They made sure I got my school materials, assisted me with my homework, and kept me healthy. In contrast, my parents never checked on me. They didn't care if I went to school every day or how well I did academically. If I was sick, my grandparents would look after me. My grandparents seemed to have taken on all of my parents' obligations. When my parents came to visit, they only talked about Jackson. They would tell my grandparents how amazing Jackson was, how brave he had been while recovering from his surgeries, and how far he had come. I don't think they ever asked my grandparents how I was doing, what was going on in my life, or how I felt. I started to feel totally invisible. I can't remember a single instance when my parents and I spent time together, just the three of us. There was no one-on-one time, and no attempt to repair any bond with me. It was always about Jackson. Then came the moment I'll never forget, Jackson's birthday celebration. My parents organized a great celebration for him because he was doing so well. They invited everyone, friends, family, and neighbors. My grandparents brought me along. Throughout the celebration, I couldn't get over my intense envy as I saw Jackson, so joyful, with my parents doting on him continuously. The entire celebration revolved around him, and while I understood it was his special day, I couldn't help but feel entirely excluded. I was a youngster as well, but my brother received all of the attention, love, and care that I craved. I'm not sure when or how, but the strong feelings of witnessing my parents around my younger brother surfaced. Before I knew it, I had broken into tears in front of everyone. I remember feeling so embarrassed in that moment, knowing that everyone could see me unraveling. My grandparents, bless their hearts, promptly brought me to a room and attempted to console me, but the pain and jealousy were too great. I believe some of the other visitors noticed and attempted to console me, but nothing genuinely improved my mood. It wasn't about the gifts or the party, it was about the attention and love I so desperately craved. Watching my parents lavish Jackson with attention and love was simply too much for me to stomach. Later, after the birthday party, my parents and grandparents had a heated argument. Apparently, my parents were embarrassed by my emotional outburst at the celebration. They thought it was foolish of me to cry in front of everyone, and they believed my actions had drawn unwanted attention to them. It wasn't simply that I was irritated. It had caused others to doubt my living circumstances. Guests began to question why I wasn't at home with my parents, why I was being raised by my grandparents, and if my parents were abandoning me. My parents were unhappy with the scrutiny and blamed me for forcing them to explain themselves. Following the disagreement, I made a decision. I would return home to live with my parents. This was something I had wanted for years, but when it finally happened, I didn't feel as excited as I had hoped. Instead, I felt apprehension. The first few days back home were incredibly awkward. The house felt foreign to me, and I frequently felt out of place, as if I were invading someone else's territory. My parents designed their routines totally on Jackson's wants and schedule. They rarely acknowledged me, and when they did, it was always in passing. I had imagined that moving back home would finally make my parents notice me, that they would care about me as much as they did about Jackson. However, it soon became evident that nothing had changed. Jackson was still the center of their universe, while I remained on the periphery, disregarded and forgotten. I was merely happy to have my own room. I spent the majority of my time there while I wasn't in school. I didn't want to be alone, yet being around my parents made me feel even more inconspicuous. At least in my room, I didn't have to watch their devotion for Jackson while I went unnoticed. I'd spend hours there, completing my homework or lying on my bed, trying to make sense of everything. Throughout my scholastic years, my parents exhibited no interest in my studies or accomplishments. They never asked about my schoolwork or attended any of my award ceremonies. Even when I participated in school plays or extracurricular activities, they didn't bother showing up or acknowledging my participation. It seemed like nothing I did mattered to them. Despite their utter contempt for my accomplishments, I made an effort to excel in school. My grandparents' limited attempts to intervene and remind my parents of my accomplishments were received with silence or plain disdain. They would push my parents to express their happiness or gratitude for me, but they either disregarded or scoffed, as if my accomplishments were unimportant. It stung so much to see how little they cared, especially given how they handled Jackson. Jackson never did well academically. He struggled in school and frequently got into trouble. He would bring home low grades, and his teachers would occasionally call home to discuss his behavior. But none of this seemed to bother my parents. They never held Jackson responsible for his lack of effort, and they certainly did not chastise him. If he ever managed to score even nearly average on a test or accomplish something minor, my parents would praise it as if it were a monumental feat. They would order pizza or take us out to his favorite restaurant, making it a huge family outing. When I finally finished high school and was accepted to college, I was fortunate to receive a partial scholarship. Even though it paid some of the fees, I was concerned about how I would handle the remaining bills. At the time, I asked my parents if they had set up a college fund for me. Part of me knew the answer, yet I felt compelled to inquire. As expected, they promptly informed me that all of the money they were saving was for Jackson. They stated he was the youngest and would need to be cared for in the future. My father openly informed me that as the oldest, I needed to learn to take care of myself. He did offer to assist me in applying for an education loan, which I would then be responsible for repaying once I found work. It was quite painful to learn that my own parents continued to disregard me. While most parents are delighted and proud to assist their children in their transition into adulthood, mine were practically telling me I was on my own. Fortunately, my grandparents saw this coming long before I did. They had been quietly planning for my future and had secretly established a trust fund for me years before. When they finally revealed this to me and told me that I didn't have to worry about college, I was completely surprised. I couldn't believe someone cared enough to do this for me. I cried with excitement because, for the first time, I felt truly supported. It was surreal. No one had ever gone to such lengths to protect me. My grandparents not only saw my talent, but they also took steps to ensure that I could attend college without financial constraints. However, when my parents learned about the trust fund that my grandparents had established for me, they did not share my excitement or relief. Instead of being delighted for me, they immediately turned the subject to Jackson. Their first query to my grandparents was if they had also established a trust fund for Jackson. My grandfather gently explained that they had intentionally chosen to care for me because my parents had always favored Jackson. They indicated that they had witnessed for years how I had been disregarded and wanted to give me a fair shot to thrive without being held back. Naturally, this did not sit well with my folks. They felt it as unfair and quickly got into a furious dispute with my grandparents about how both grandchildren should be treated equally. They accused my grandparents of favoritism and demanded that Jackson, as the youngest member of the family, deserved his share of the money. They couldn't believe my grandparents had chosen to help me because they saw how neglected I had been all these years. My parents seemed to be unaware that they had spent Jackson's entire life treating him as if he were the center of the universe. Despite the pressure and accusations, my grandparents held their stance. They refused to back down or let my parents manipulate the issue. They clarified that this was not about favoritism. Rather, it was about ensuring that I have the same opportunities as Jackson, which my parents had previously provided. My grandparents made their decision out of love and fairness, knowing that I had not received the same attention and support that Jackson had. After failing to persuade my grandparents, my parents focused their efforts on me. They tried to persuade me to share some of the trust fund with them, claiming that I should invest in Jackson's future when he went to college. They portrayed it as if I was greedy for retaining the money for myself, despite the fact that it was not mine to give away. It was a gift from my grandparents. I refused. I informed them that it was not my obligation to care for Jackson's schooling, especially since they had always stated that their financial priority was with him. My parents were unhappy about my decision, but there was nothing they could do. For once, they did not have the upper hand. I wasn't going to give away what had been given to me out of love and care because they thought Jackson deserved it all. It was a heartbreaking realization that even in this situation, my parents could not be happy for me. But it was also powerful because I understood I needed to stand up for myself, even if it meant defying my parents. As a result, my connection with my parents deteriorated significantly after I departed for college. They cut off practically all touch with me, convinced that what I had done was selfish toward my brother. Jackson and I had never been close. He was content being the preferred child, and with me out of the house, he didn't have to compete for our parents' attention. He never contacted or visited me when I was at college. While it was unsurprising, it still stung. My grandparents were the only ones that actually cared and remained in my life. They were my emotional support system, always checking in on me, encouraging me, and ensuring I didn't feel completely abandoned. But then, in my third year of college, my life was turned upside down. My grandfather died unexpectedly from a heart attack in his sleep. His death left me shattered. It was, without a doubt, the darkest period of my life. I spent several days with my grandmother while we mourned together. It was a devastating loss for both of us. My grandfather had been a father figure to me in every manner that mattered, and losing him created a void in my heart. During this hard time, something unexpected happened. I bonded with my parents and Jackson. My grandfather's death shook all of us, and for the first time in years, we found ourselves connecting over our shared sadness. Despite my many unresolved issues for my parents, something about the incident brought us closer. For a brief moment, it felt as if the barriers between us had fallen. My grandfather had even left a letter for my mother. In it, he begged her to stop ignoring me and to care for both of her children, not just Jackson. He reminded her of the value of family and how she couldn't afford to continue treating one child better than the other for all these years. I guess something changed after that. Perhaps for the first time, my parents appeared to be genuinely sorry for how they had treated me. They slowly began to make an effort to reconnect. They began calling me more regularly, inquired about my studies, and shown an interest in my life. It wasn't perfect, the anguish of the past couldn't be erased that easily, but it was something. I was still upset with them for all the years they had disregarded me and for not being there when I needed them. But, at the same time, I could see they were trying, which gave me a glimmer of optimism. I wanted to think that they could change, that perhaps, just maybe, they were beginning to recognize their mistakes. When I graduated from college, my parents actually attended the ceremony. They smiled proudly as they snapped pictures with me. It seemed odd to have them there after all those years when they hadn't even acknowledged my achievements. Following the ceremony, my parents, Jackson, my grandma, and I went out to lunch to celebrate. It was one of the few times I felt like we were a family, even if it was just for a short period. For once, I wasn't invisible to them, and that simple act of recognition meant more to me than words could describe. This year, after securing my first true high-paying job and earning my first big salary, I wanted to do something special to commemorate the occasion. I thought, why not share this moment with my family? I hadn't spent much time with my parents growing up, so I wanted to surprise them with something meaningful, a cruise excursion. Only the three of us. There were no distractions or obligations, simply quality time together to compensate for what we had missed over the years. Deep down, I knew I desired their attention, even after all these years of feeling overlooked. As for Jackson, I intended to get him something nice later so he wouldn't feel excluded. I wanted the cruise trip to be a surprise for my parents, so instead of notifying them over the phone, I made a reservation at a fine, costly restaurant where we could eat and celebrate. When I called to invite my parents, they appeared excited, even thrilled, to visit the restaurant. They promised to be there on time. But, when I arrived at the restaurant on time, my parents were unable to be seen. At first, I attempted to give them the benefit of doubt. Perhaps they were stuck in traffic or running a little late. However, after around 15, 20, and 30 minutes, I began to feel worried. I contacted them several times, and they did not answer until the sixth call. My father casually remarked that they were finishing up some last-minute errands and will be at the restaurant soon. Annoyed but hopeful, I remained at the table, waiting for them. The waiter kept coming by, asking if the rest of my group had come, and I became increasingly humiliated with each passing minute. I didn't want to look like I'd been stood up in a fine restaurant. I eventually ordered dinner for myself since I was hungry. I finished my dinner while sitting alone, glancing at the empty seats across from me. My calls to my parents remained unanswered after that. An hour passed, followed by nearly 2 hours. Finally, after my 15th effort, my father answered the phone. He began apologizing, but I was completely irritated by this point. I started yelling at him, wondering what they had been doing all this time and why they couldn't just tell me they weren't going to make it. "Oh, just stop complaining," he replied dismissively. "I apologize for the delay. Your mother and I were held up at the shop. We selected the ideal birthday present for your brother, but when we got to the counter, we discovered your mother had forgotten her card at home. So we had to drive back and grab it. Fortunately, the shop had our gift, which we were able to purchase just now. Jackson is going to be overjoyed with what we picked out for him. By the way, have you purchased anything for your brother yet? You do recall that his birthday is in 2 weeks, right?" At that point, I felt like the wind had been knocked out of me. I was hoping to have a memorable moment with my parents to celebrate my accomplishments and bring us closer together, but once again, Jackson was all that mattered to them. They had spent the entire evening shopping for his birthday gift, completely ignoring the fact that I had been sitting alone at the restaurant waiting for them. Not only had they missed the dinner, but they had the audacity to inquire whether I had thought to get something for Jackson. I was livid, but I tried to remain calm as I reminded my father that they could have bought for Jackson any other day. They should have respected my time, especially because I went out of my way to prepare this for them. My father's response made matters worse. He dismissed my concerns, claiming they were on their way and that we could discuss it once they arrived. However, I did not want to stay there any longer. I was furious with my parents. I paid my bill, got up from the table and went. My phone began to vibrate as I drove back home. My parents were phoning and left voicemails, stating they had arrived at the restaurant but couldn't find me. I ignored their calls because I was too angry and hurt to even consider talking to them. Later that night, my mother sent me a series of SMS. She attacked me rather than apologizing or admitting that they had made mistakes. She labeled me impolite for not being present when they finally arrived, as if I had wasted their time. She had the gall to claim that this was why they didn't care about my irrelevant intentions in the first place. I was always so impulsive. According to her, their priorities were totally acceptable, and I was in the wrong for being furious with them. Reading her messages brought up memories of hurt and fury. I had put my heart and soul into planning something spectacular, and all I received in return was the same indifference I had felt my entire life. I simply couldn't deal with their cruel statements and frequent disregard for my sentiments. After everything I had done to make this moment memorable, I felt much more alone than before. I knew that no matter what I did, Jackson would always come first, leaving me as an afterthought. I blocked her without bothering to respond. Update number 1. The reason I bought the cruise tickets in the first place was that my parents' conduct had changed significantly following my grandfather's death. I felt they'd finally recognized me as a human being and their child. But I suppose I was mistaken again. I am delighted my eyes are awake now. Starting today, I'm done begging and crying for their attention. I will block both of them on my phone. Regarding the update, it appears that my parents have informed Jackson of the entire situation, and he phoned me this week to address it. My brother believes that our parents' actions were not improper, and that I should have respected them enough to wait for their arrival rather than fleeing at the last minute. He added that our parents were quite disappointed in me and had contacted him to protest about my activities. He invited me to his forthcoming birthday party so I could apologize to our parents. I declined his request, asking him to leave me alone for the time being. He tried to argue with me more, but I reminded him that my connection with our parents had nothing to do with him, and that he would never comprehend what I was going through. Update number 2. It's been a month since I last updated. For those who inquired, I did consider canceling my cruise reservations. But then I realized I'd spent a big portion of my paycheck on them, so I resolved to make better use of them. I chose to travel with my best friend and grandmother rather than my parents. To put it simply, the three of us had a fantastic time, and I quickly forgot about all of my parents' trouble. This trip provided a much-needed break for all of us. However, after the trip, when I shared a few photos from our cruise, I began receiving messages from my father on Facebook, accusing me of being selfish and ungrateful for taking grandma on the vacation without inviting them. I had forgotten to block my parents on Facebook because I assumed they rarely used it. My father's audacity to ask me to take him after everything he and mom had put me through was staggering. He also mentioned how upset my mother was when I blocked her, and how he wishes I would simply go to therapy and overcome my childish behavior, so I could stop torturing them for the rest of their life. Update number 3. Hello everyone, it has been 4 months since my previous update, and I am doing well. I've blocked both my parents and Jackson. I'll admit that since cutting them off, my life has become considerably more calm. I've learned to recognize that family isn't always what you're born into, it's what you choose. Surrounding yourself with supportive friends and loved ones has made a huge difference. My grandmother and I still have a terrific relationship, and I want to take her on additional vacations in the future. Am I the asshole for moving out knowing my fiancé can't afford it alone while his mother who refuses to work disrespects me in my own home? Me, F29, and my ex-fiancé, M27, have been living together for about 1.5 years. Fiancé got his undergraduate degree, worked for a couple of years and then decided to get an MBA, which is how he ended up in our city. We moved in together after he finished his MBA program. Fiancé is from the Midwest and his mom has always wanted him to move back. When he told her he was staying here, she was heartbroken. I went to college and got my degree in a STEM field. After I graduated, I got a job with my current company and moved to the city where we currently live. It's a big international company with multiple locations in the US and internationally. I love my job, I like the company I work for, and the pay is pretty good. All in all, a pretty good deal. During COVID, my office shut down and we all went WFH. After COVID, they decided not to reopen this office, so I've been 100% WFH since early 2020. I currently make considerably more than him, mainly because I've been working for 7 years and I'm in tech. I had been living by myself in a 1-bedroom apartment and just had my office set up in the living room since it was just me. When we moved in together, we decided to get a 2-bedroom apartment so I could use the extra room as an office. Because of this, I was paying 2/3 of the rent and he paid 1/3. We split everything else 50-50. So the problem started this past May. Fiancé's mom told him she wanted to move to our city to be closer to him. She asked if she could stay with us while she looked for a job and got settled. She's a teacher, so figured she'd be able to get a teaching job pretty quickly. Because of that, I didn't really mind her staying with us, as I figured it would just be for a couple months over the summer. Since I thought it would only be for a couple months, I moved my office into a corner of our bedroom and my fiancé bought a bed to put in the second bedroom. The problem is she never applied for any teaching positions and has been living with us for 6 months now. She and I have really been struggling with each other since she moved in. I can't make her understand that I work full time. She constantly interrupts while I'm working, which is bad enough, but she even interrupts when I'm on team calls. She always asks me to take her places because she doesn't like to drive in our city. She has pretty outdated views of gender roles and is constantly giving me a hard time for not doing more around the house and making fiancé help with chores, do his own laundry, etc. The constant criticism and insults are just really wearing me down. And I hate having my office shoved in a corner of the bedroom. Back in September, I told my fiancé that since it looks like his mom is going to stay a while, we should split the rent 3 ways. He told me she can't afford that since she has to conserve money until she gets a job. I told him I wasn't happy paying extra for a bedroom I can't use, so finally he said we could do a 50-50 split. I could afford to pay the extra, but I hate the idea of funding her lifestyle. Every time I complain about her or the situation, he says he agrees but doesn't know what to do because he can't kick out his mom. And he won't talk to her about the way she treats me or how she behaves. When I ask what the long-term plan is, he just says he doesn't know. I've thought about giving him an ultimatum to tell her she has to leave, but I think he'd just end up resenting me for essentially putting him mom on the street. So one of my girlfriends is losing her roommate at the end of February. Our lease renews June 1st. I'm very strongly considering moving out of our current apartment and moving in with her. I can afford to pay part of the rent on our current apartment and also half the rent at my friend's apartment. It's not ideal, but I'm not a big spender, so it's doable. The issue is, if he and his mom aren't able to pay for 1/3 the rent each, there's no way they could cover the whole thing on their own. But I can't live like this anymore, so I'm pretty sure this is what I'll do, but I wanted to see if people thought I'd be the AH for leaving them like this. Comments. Comment 1. His mom is the biggest A because she specifically planned this. It isn't that she's had bad luck, she didn't even apply. Add in that she didn't respect your workplace and insults you. She's basically trying to be the matriarch of the house, while being a complete mooch. The biggest problem is your fiancé. This is just a glimpse of your future with a mama's boy. He's made it clear that he's okay with her walking all over you, and she's not leaving. You're going to end up as a third wheel in your own marriage. Comment 2. Je suis d'accord. His mom is taking advantage, and your fiancé isn't setting boundaries. It's a big concern for the future. You deserve better. NTA. Comment 3. Exactly this. OP, you're not leaving them, you're escaping a situation that was never fair to you in the first place. His mom didn't just end up staying. She chose not to apply for jobs, and your fiancé chose to let her. Meanwhile, you've been paying the majority of the rent, lost your office, and now you're stuck in your own home with someone who disrespects you daily. If he wanted to build a life with you, he would have had a plan for this months ago. Instead, you're the only one being asked to sacrifice. Time to choose yourself because they already have. Comment 4. And be prepared for them to be upset because they are losing their money bags. They were using you and had absolutely no respect for you, or neither one of them. If you don't leave, you will be the Comment 5. I'm a teacher. An old, retired teacher. I could substitute teach every day this week if I wanted to do so. I still get requests to app interview for both public school and private school jobs. MIL could work if she wanted to work. I'm in my late 60s and drive all over and in Mexico and Europe on vacation. She is needlessly helpless. Comment 6. Good news, you discovered your fiancé is a mama's boy before you got legally entangled. The price is 3 months of paying double rent. Sucks, but much cheaper than a divorce, alimony, child support, and years of therapy because of dealing with that kind of miel. Mommy wanted to prove her darling boy would pick her and take care of her. So she moved in and proved it. He won't stand up to her. Sadly, unless he gets some serious therapy and figures out how to unmesh, he's never going to. So tell him flat out, Mommy wins. She gets her whittle boy back. You will find a grown man. You'll pay your portion of the rent for the next few months, but you're letting the landlord know you will not be renewing and do not use your income for renewal for him and Mommy. I'm sorry you have to deal with this. You did what you could, but unless he wants to grow up, you're going to spend decades hearing how you don't cook right, clean right, raise your kids, spend money, vacation wrong, and have bad values. She, of course, knows better. Don't do that to yourself. And maybe, just maybe, this will make him realize he's got to get off Mommy's titty if he ever wants a life of his own. Update, 5 days later. I posted here last week about the situation I'm in living with my soon-to-be ex-fiancé and his mom. I started off trying to reply to everyone's comments and keep up, but honestly I just got completely overwhelmed with all the comments. First off, I want to thank everyone for their feedback and comments, even the ones that were kind of harsh. Actually, probably especially the ones that were kind of harsh. I really needed some tough love to make me realize that I was letting my STBX and his mom take advantage of me. The more comments I read, the more pissed off I got. Honestly, I think I'm more pissed at myself for allowing this to happen and not advocating for myself more. This past weekend I got my STBX alone so we could talk, which was actually harder than it should have been. BC, his mom always tries to tag along when we do anything. Going through all the comments everyone left and the PMs people sent really helped me decide how to approach this. And also, brought up a lot of good questions I should have thought of myself. Back to the discussion with the ex. I wanted to give him one more chance to pick us over his mom. Not because I thought he would, but I just wanted to be able to tell myself I give him the opportunity. I explained again about how unhappy I am with the situation, how it's affecting my work because of her constant interruptions, and just being unhappy and uncomfortable that I'm forced to work out of a corner in our bedroom. And I reminded him that until a few months ago I was paying the majority of the rent, and being that I make so much more than him, it's really my salary that keeps us all afloat. And I also brought up, again, the way she treats me and talks to me. And he replied the same way he has been. He agrees it's not right how she acts and that it's really uncomfortable for us all. WTF, I don't care if she's uncomfortable. Previously I would have dropped it there. But this time I told him how angry and disappointed I was that he let me pay for 2/3 of the rent when she first moved, and how unfair it was that I'm still paying for half when there are 3 people living there and she is the only one with her own bedroom. It was the same story. She has to conserve money since she doesn't have any income currently. Which brought up the question of where all her stuff went when she moved. What money does she use for incidentals? So evidently, when she got divorced, she asked for the divorce after my ex went off to college. It doesn't sound like her husband ex's dad wanted the divorce. His dad bought her out of the equity in their house. Ex didn't have any idea how much that was or how much is left. But until she moved here she was working full-time as a teacher and living in a small apartment, so she should not have had to tap into the divorce settlement money very much. Other than that, ex didn't have much insight into her finances other than what she told him, that she has to conserve money. I told him straight up that I'm moving out before the end of the month. And from now on I'm only paying 25%. As some of the commenters pointed out, she has a whole bedroom while I have to share with a man-child. So she should have to pay twice as much. And after I move out I'm not paying for anything else. No utilities, no food, nothing other than rent. I have a pretty idea what his finances are like, and if he has to pay 75% of the rent all by himself, it's going to take a huge chunk of his net income. And after he pays utilities and buys groceries, there won't be anything left for incidentals. Rent was due on the 1st, but it's not late until after the 5th, so he has 2 days to come up with the dollars. If he doesn't come up with it and I end up covering, then I'll reduce the amount I pay in future months. The only reason I'm going to keep paying any of the rent is even after I move out, I'm still on the hook. I talked to the leasing office and they explained that since X and I signed a single rental agreement together, e.g., one contract we both signed as opposed to 2 contracts we signed individually, we are both responsible for the rent. They don't care who actually pays as long as it gets paid. The only alternative would be if he agrees to sign a new lease by himself, or together with his mom. But in all likelihood he wouldn't be able to pass the credit check on his own, so I'm kinda stuck. I don't think he'll do anything stupid though, because he's going to need to find someplace to live after this, and a collection on his credit report wouldn't be good. I also told him that I'm going to find someplace to work during the day until I move so she can't bother me. My friend I'm moving in with said I could work there during the day since she and her current roommate have in-person 9-to-5s. I took her up on that for now. After living with his mom, I'm not about to overstay my welcome, so I'm going to find some other options that I can rotate through. Someone suggested checking out the public library, or if it comes to it I'll get a membership at one of those WeWork kind of places. Just in case, I brought my important papers, files, valuables, and my friend is storing them for me until I move in. He really didn't take it well. The surprising thing to me is that he was surprised by everything. He seemed really shocked that I wasn't prioritizing his mom. I really got the feeling that he sincerely believed I wanted to take care of her as much as him, and he kept saying stuff like, "What about my mom? What am I going to tell her? That's how she is, but we still need to help her," etc. He asked about our relationship and the engagement. I told him after I moved out I needed some space from him. In a few months, when we've both had some time space to process what happened, if we both agree, we can talk about the relationship. But he'd have to prove that he's going to have my back going forward and will set boundaries with his mom. I told him that just to avoid more drama, but I don't see a future in which we are together. I told him he needs to tell his mom because she's not my responsibility or problem, and she'll know something when I start moving my stuff out. He hasn't told her what's going on yet, but this weekend I'm going to start moving things so he doesn't have much time. My friend's current roommate starts a new job in another state on the 3rd. So in reality I can probably move in 2 to 3 weeks, just depending on when she actually leaves. I don't expect him to do anything bad, other than sulk and complain, but if he does something stupid, or doesn't pay his part of the rent, the ace up my sleeve is I'll tell the leasing office his mom moved in, which is prohibited in the lease. Honestly, getting evicted would solve a lot of my problems right now, so it's a pretty valid threat, I think. Now that I've mentally and emotionally separated myself from him and his mom, I'm looking forward to her reaction when he tells her what's going on. If it gets too ugly, I'll find a cheap Airbnb or hotel or something. I've had some friends, including the one I'm moving in with, offer to let me couch surf for a few weeks, but I just can't do that to someone else. So, that's it. I'm leaving and I really don't care how that affects them. Comments. Comment 1. You're at the end of a long and painful process, but I'm sure that you will be better for it. Good luck. Comment 2. Dude should really just marry his mom. Comment 3. Notify your landlord in writing that you are moving out and to take you off the lease after June 1st. You wouldn't want to do nothing and accidentally trigger an automatic renewal. Oop. Already did that. I did it before I went to talk to the front office and confirmed that they received it while I was down there. My girlfriend wanted an open relationship. So I watched her drift away, found comfort in her best friend, and took control of my own happiness. Hey Reddit, I never thought I'd post about relationships, but I need to vent and maybe get some help. At 28, male, I thought my relationship with Sophie, 27, female, was secure until recently. After 3 years dating and 2 years living together, everything was great. Like I was covertly checking for engagement diamonds on my lunch break. Super normal story. Common friends introduced us at a board game night. She smiled at my stupid jokes. I enjoyed her Monopoly competitiveness, and we clicked. After dating for a year, it was natural to share an apartment as we were always at each other's houses. Our routines, you know? Sunday morning pancakes, park walks after work, watching her favorite dreadful reality shows while I play phone games. Normal couple stuff. Sophie is a marketer. I handle building projects. Our families get along. We have wonderful careers and friends. My mom adores her. Her dad regularly invites me to football games. We were that couple that gave others hope in relationships. Yeah. It sounds familiar now. Everything was normal until Tuesday. Dinner was served. Sophie was talking about a work project while I was eating my sandwich when she said, "Hey, what would you think about trying an open relationship?" I froze mid-bite, fork halfway to mouth. I assumed I misheard her, but she kept talking. She told me she had been reading about it online, that many couples were trying it, and that it may help us grow and strengthen our relationship. I asked, "Is there someone specific you want to date?" Because that was my initial instinct. Open relationships are only discussed when someone has someone in mind, right? Sophie became defensive. No, it's not about anyone else. I just think it would be good for us to explore ourselves more. We're still young, and I don't want us to wake up in 10 years wondering what we missed out on. Sitting there, I tried to understand what was happening. When a waitress smiled too much at me, this girl became upset. Her new dating advice is like proposing we try a different restaurant. I asked, "Have you been feeling unhappy?" In case I missed something, maybe I should have noticed indications. "Not at all," she answered, taking my hand across the table. "I love you. I love us. This isn't about being unhappy. It's about making our relationship even better. Think about it. We could both have new experiences but still come home to each other. Lots of couples say it makes their connection stronger." Not knowing what to say, my thinking froze between confusion and panic. My appetite was gone. The food in front of me could have been cardboard. Sophie, however, spoke animatedly, almost glowing. She kept talking about norms, boundaries, communication. But I kept thinking, where is this coming from? "However, yes," I said. "Okay." I realized this sounds weak. Not because I wanted to. Not because I believed. But her desire in her eyes and the way she leaned in, virtually screaming for my approval, showed she had already decided. Saying no was like closing a door she didn't want to. "Are you sure you're okay with this?" she questioned, wide-eyed and anxious, like she was offering me a choice. "We don't have to if you're not comfortable." I saw her desperate for my approval. I knew this wasn't a decision in the back of my head. Something was changing between us, like it or not. To find out what was going on, I had to play along. "No, it's fine," I nodded. "If you think it'll be good for us, we can try it." I entered something I didn't believe in, knowing I was losing her. She became thrilled and started talking about how we might set up dating app profiles together and how we should notify each other of upcoming dates, all of which she seemed to have already considered. I'm sitting there wondering, how long did she plan this? Rest of the night was odd. We watched TV as usual, but my mind raced. Sophie was cuddling with me on the couch, acting like everything was fine, like she hadn't just suggested changing our relationship. I kept wanting to return it and tell her I wasn't happy. I had no idea how. Every time I saw her browsing through her phone with a smile, I felt like I had made a big mistake. That night in bed, I couldn't sleep. Sophie lay cold next to me, serene, while I glanced at the ceiling, wondering what I had done. Part of me wanted to wake her awake and tell her I didn't want to share her. Some part of me was afraid. I was afraid she would do it or leave me if I said no. As I laid there, I reviewed our recent conversations to see if I missed any indications. Is she bored? Was I insufficient? Was someone else there? I had no responses to the inquiries that kept coming. Little did I know, this was just the start of the chaos. Sophie asked me to assist pick photographs for her Tinder and Bumble profiles all evening, like a lover would. She asked me to take new photos of her. Yes, seriously. I took images of my girlfriend to make her look good to other males. I created my own profile to demonstrate my effort. My heart wasn't in it. Writing a bio felt awkward and false every time. What should I write? Looking for fun while dating? I felt awful all over. She probably knew I wouldn't meet anyone. I told her I'm not social and don't have time or energy to meet new people several times. Maybe she believed she could date and use me as backup. Sophie got matches fast. Her beauty and playfulness are obvious. I was most surprised by how quickly she met these guys. Within a week, she had 3 dates. 3. She showed me their profiles like we were discussing celebrity obsessions. She shoved her phone in my face. Look at this one. He's a personal trainer at that fancy gym downtown. We're getting coffee tomorrow. I nodded, pretending this was usual. I felt queasy the first time she got dressed for a date. I had never seen her black clothing before. For this, she bought new outfits. She did cosmetics for an hour. She twirled as she left our bedroom. How do I look? She exclaimed. I said, great, knowing that dress probably cost more than she spends on our date nights. She returned home late that night, laughing. I feigned to sleep when she went to bed, but I heard her texting for an hour. She hummed while preparing coffee the next morning and pretended everything was wonderful. I noticed her schedule. Monday involved coffee with a gym guy. Wednesday supper with a lawyer. A food truck owner and I had drinks Friday. The range was intriguing. She always came home looking like she had the time of her life. I checked the Instagram locations she tagged. Not my proudest moment, but I needed to know the truth. I drove by the restaurant where she stated she was eating one night. She was at the bar with a tall suit-clad man cracking up. She held his arm and looked at him like she did at me. Distance between us. Her change at home was worse than seeing her with these guys. She spent less time with me, no more cuddling. She texted constantly. Sunday pancake ritual? She was meeting the girls for brunch. I once discussed it with her. Don't you think you're going on a lot of dates? I asked casually. She looked at me like a fool. That's the whole point of an open relationship, isn't it? To meet new people and have experiences? You should try it too. I can help you with your profile if you want. But I didn't want profile aid. Please return my girlfriend. I wanted the person who used to love ordering pizza and watching lousy movies with me, not this new version who always dressed up and left. She was getting ready for date number 6 or 7 one night. I lost track. I couldn't stand it. I went on a walk to clear my brain and ended up at this picnic spot. I sat there for 2 hours contemplating how quickly everything had fallen apart. Sophie's messages buzzed my phone. Hope you're okay. Don't wait. Have such a great time. She twisted the knife with each message. She tried to tell me about her date the next day, how hilarious he was and how he took her to this great new restaurant. Standing, I left the room. Following me, she seemed bewildered. I thought you were okay with this? She asked, shocked. Yeah, maybe I'm not, I answered. But you could be dating too. You're choosing to stay home and be miserable. That's when I understood she didn't understand. She didn't get that I didn't want additional dates. I wanted her. Her old self. He liked our boring, normal existence together. 3 weeks had passed since she started this open relationship thing. 3 weeks of watching her dress up for other guys and lying awake wondering where she was, what she was doing, and who she was with. My thoughts went crazy for 3 weeks. I assumed she'd understand how foolish she sounded. I kept waiting for her to wake up and realize how ridiculous this was and what she was throwing away. But she didn't. Without hesitation. Not guilty. She took pride in it. She moved around like she had discovered a higher level of dating that we were too foolish to understand. Worst part? I couldn't comprehend why. It seemed she liked me. Why burn it all down? Why say we didn't have enough? It finally clicked. This was unfixable. No return. The end was irreversible. For once, I wasn't sure I cared. I was inspired by the thought of her living her life carefree while I was drowning in it. I wanted her to regret everything. Show her what she threw away. I had no plan yet. I knew I wouldn't suffer while she had fun. I didn't know what to do next, but I needed to chat. Someone who would realize how messed up this was. Emma started visiting more often. Emma, Sophie's best friend since college freshman year, was Emma. She came to movie nights, helped us move furniture, and brought soup when someone was sick. One of those genuine people, you know? Being a kindergarten teacher suits her because she makes everyone feel heard and important. I always saw her as Sophie's friend. Though pretty, long brown hair, green eyes, constantly smiling, I put her in the buddy zone. In addition, she had dated Mark for 2 years. However, they split months ago. She first came over after Sophie started her open relationship to borrow mixing bowls for a birthday cake. Sophie went out with a new guy, and Emma sensed something was up with me. "You look terrible," she stated directly. "What's going on?" Although I didn't intend to tell her everything, it happened. How Sophie announced open relationships to me. How she dated various males practically every night. I felt crazy witnessing it all. Emma sat, listening. Truly listening, not just waiting for her to speak. She shook her head after I finished. "Not an open relationship," she remarked. "That's just Sophie doing whatever she wants without caring how it affects you." Something about hearing it from someone else made me less insane. After that, Emma visited more often, generally while Sophie was dating. Watching movies, ordering takeout, just hanging around. Talking to someone was nice. Someone who understood us and the situation. Confession: Emma appeared concerned one night after Sophie had been exploring for a month. I saw her fiddle with her jewelry when she was concerned. "I need to tell you something," she whispered from across the couch. "And it might make things weird, but I can't keep pretending." My stomach flipped strangely. Maybe I knew what was coming. "I've had feelings for you for a long time," she replied, holding her hands. "Like, since before you and Sophie even got together. But you were with her, and she's my best friend, so I never said anything. I started dating Mark hoping it would help me get over it, but," she replied, "it didn't work." I sat there trying to comprehend. Emma, kind, funny, lovely, had affections for me. How could I miss that? She assisted me in Sophie's gift selection. Sophie, who was undecided about a meaningful relationship with me. Sophie seldom texted to check in, but Emma made me homemade chicken soup when I was unwell. Was I blind the whole time? "You don't have to say anything," she said hurriedly. "I just needed you to know. Watching Sophie treat you like this, seeing how much it's hurting you, it's been killing me. You deserve better than this." I regarded her. Really regarded her. Her eyes shone in that modest green sweater. Her hair was in an easy sloppy bun that made her seem prettier. I was puzzled how I hadn't noticed before. Still, Sophie's actions haunted me. She believed I'd wait like a devoted idiot while she walked around with multiple guys. Like I was a safety net. Available whenever she was bored. It was her biggest error. She was out there doing what she wanted, assuming I'd be there when she returned. Nah. For me, that chapter ended. I no longer followed her rules. My game was personal. I shot my shot. I breathed deeply, feeling that shift. The moment when I took charge. "Emma," I said, surprised by my steady voice. She sat closer on the couch. "I know this is complicated. I know I'm probably making everything worse by telling you this. But seeing you so unhappy these past few weeks, I just couldn't stay quiet anymore." She kissed me, leaning in, kissing me. Should have stopped. I should have considered Sophie, our friendship, and how complicated this would be. So I kissed her back. Not simply a kiss. We slept together. This was different. Emma noticed me. She liked me. She noticed my countenance shift, inquired what I was thinking, and cared. After resting in the dark, I processed it. This had gone far. How everything changed. Knowing I slept with my girlfriend's best friend. It should have felt like crossing a line. But all I could think about was how good that felt. This was no meaningless rebound, an impetuous mistake. She turned, raising herself on her elbow, looking at me. "What are we going to do?" she inquired quietly but steadily. Staring at the ceiling, I sighed. I should have replied. I should have felt guilt, conflict, etc. I only felt relief. After weeks of choking in Sophie's wreckage, I could breathe. "I don't know," I said. Emma paused, then asked, "I don't regret it. Do you? That insane thing?" I didn't. Not even briefly. I saw things clearly for the first time since this open relationship tragedy began. Our demise wasn't my fault. I did not break trust. Maybe I deserve someone who wants me. Just me. Sophie's going to lose it when she finds out, remarked I. Probably, Emma said. But isn't it funny how she thinks it's perfectly fine for her to date other people, but the idea of you doing the same would drive her crazy? It was her point. And then I thought, maybe Sophie should take her medicine. I didn't tell Sophie about Emma immediately. Part of me wanted to watch her reaction to hints first. Maybe that was petty. After seeing her show off with different guys for weeks, I thought she deserved to experience that. After Emma left, Sophie returned from staying at Jessica's place. Jessica was probably Jason, but whatever. She chatted about her girlfriend's night while pouring coffee. The first hint was dropped then. "Oh, Emma stopped by last night," I casually said. "We had a really good talk." Sophie's coffee pot grasp froze. "Emma was here?" "Yeah, we hung out for a while. She's really easy to talk to, you know?" Sophie dropped her coffee mug too hard, spilling some on the counter. "What did you guys talk about?" "Just stuff," I shrugged. "Life, relationships, feelings, it was nice." Her expression was priceless. Her next hour was spent contacting someone, likely trying to gain specifics from Emma, while pretending to watch TV with me. She looked at me every few minutes, trying to figure out what occurred. Over the next 3 days, I mentioned Emma more. She was hilarious. Her genuine understanding. How we texted. Sophie would always have a tight look, like she was trying not to respond but couldn't. Sophie almost ran across the couch when I smiled at my phone while emailing Emma one morning. "Who are you texting?" she inquired, failing spectacularly at casualness. "Just Emma," I said. "She's really into this new show I recommended." Sophie tried to grin but seemed in anguish. "You guys have been talking a lot lately." "Yeah. She's great to talk to. Really gets me, you know." Sophie started checking my phone when I left it sitting around. She thought she was sneaking, but I caught her browsing through my texts when I was in the bathroom or kitchen. The amusing part? I removed all Emma-related evidence. I left enough pleasant text to make her suspicious and insane. Sophie began appearing at my known locations. I would mention getting coffee at this cafe near work, and she would simply show up. Or she would arrive an hour after I said I was meeting friends at a bar, saying she was in the neighborhood. Best part? Self-date cancellations began. She suddenly came home more. "I want to watch movies. Cook dinner together." It was like witnessing someone mark their territory without acknowledging it. She came straight out with it after many attempts to get closer, which I always blocked. "Are you seeing someone else?" "Isn't that kind of the point of an open relationship?" I asked. "To see other people, yeah. But who is it? Is it Emma? Are you sleeping with Emma?" I only answered, "I thought we weren't supposed to share details about our other partners." "Isn't that what you said when I asked about your dates?" Sophie faltered. She looked at my Instagram followers, likes, and online interactions. She obsessively read Emma's social media posts and stories. Emma's coffee shop selfie was the final blow. Coffee establishment where I have my morning coffee. Sophie rang me immediately. "Are you with Emma right now?" "Sophie, I'm at work." "But you always get coffee at that place in the morning. Did you meet her there?" Let her panic, then said, "That coffee shop has, like, 1,000 customers every day. People can go to the same coffee shop without it meaning anything." Sophie wasn't convinced. She often asked where I was heading. The person I saw. What I did. She demanded to know my every move after weeks of arriving home late from dates and never telling me who she was with. Emma laughed at Sophie's behavior when I told her. We met discreetly at her house so Sophie wouldn't see us. I quickly lost my doubts about hooking up with her and felt justified. She really can't handle not being in control, can she? Emma asked one night while we sat on her couch. Okay, nope, I said. And the best part? She can't even complain about it without admitting she never actually wanted an open relationship. She just wanted permission to cheat. Sophie switched tactics. One night at home, she dropped a bomb that changed everything. Closed relationship proposal. I think we should close the relationship again. I saw Sophie sit on our couch, appearing serious and anxious, telling me we should focus on us again. The same person who had been dating randomly for weeks was now sitting there, acting like she was helping me. I think we've explored enough, she murmured, taking my hand, pulling it away. We could go back to how things were before. Just you and me. It made me laugh. Just you and me? Like the past few weeks never happened? Well, yeah, she answered, confused by my response. Isn't that what you wanted? You haven't seemed happy with the open relationship. I quit playing games then. You're right, I haven't been happy. Watching my girlfriend go on dates with a new guy every other night while barely acknowledging my existence. Her face did this odd thing because she wanted to look empathetic but failed. I know it was hard for you, but that's why I'm saying we should close things up again. We can work on ourselves. Work on us, I repeated. Like how you've been working on getting to know half the guys in this city. That's not fair, she defended. You agreed to the open relationship. You could have been dating too. Oh, I have been, I responded, observing her look. I've been seeing someone. Sophie paled. Really pale. What? Who? Does it matter? Isn't that what you wanted? Both of us are exploring and having new experiences. She leapt from the couch. Of course it matters. Who the hell is it? How long? Her eyes expanded. It's Emma, isn't it? I sat and let her spiral. She ran her hands through her hair and paced our living room. It is Emma, isn't it? That's why you've been talking about her so much. That's why she's been avoiding my calls. My best friend? Leaning back. Really funny how you're allowed to sleep with whoever you want, but the moment I do the same, it's a problem. But it's Emma, she cried. She's my best friend. You can't sleep with my best friend. Standing, I looked her in the eye. Actually, I can. And I did. Sophie froze. She looked at me like she couldn't believe what she heard. What did you just say? I slept with Emma. Multiple times, actually. And you know what? It was great. She actually cares about my feelings, which is more than I can say for you lately. Sophie's face turned from disbelief to wrath in 2 seconds. You're lying. Emma would never do that to me. Really? Because she did. Want to know what else? She's had feelings for me for years. Even when she was dating Mark, she was thinking about me. You're lying to hurt me, Sophie remarked. I saw doubt in her eyes. I'm not. I witnessed realization. Remember last Thursday, when you were out with that startup guy? Sophie nodded slowly. Emma came over. We talked for hours. Then we slept together. She sees me as a person, not just some backup plan waiting at home while you live your best life. Sophie took out her phone, likely to call Emma. Not believing you? Emma would never? Check your texts with her, I encouraged. Notice her recent distance? Unresponsive to your messages? For that reason. She looked through her phone anxiously, possibly seeing Emma's ignored messages and short replies in a new light. This can't be happening, she said. This isn't how this was supposed to go. Really? How should it go? You party with other guys while I stay home as the loyal boyfriend? Was it impossible that I would find someone else? Not Emma. No, Emma, she shouted. You knew it would hurt. Lost it then. Do you hurt? How much have you wounded me? Did you ever consider how it felt to watch you dress up for other guys, come home late smelling like someone else's fragrance, and barely look at me? She protested. That was different. Those guys didn't mean anything. That improve it? While you had meaningless hookups, I developed serious affections for someone? I wanted to drop hints to make her feel the heat she gave me. Staring at me, she paused. Real feelings? Yeah. True sentiments. Emma and I go beyond physical. We chat, we chuckle, really care about each other. When was the last time we talked about something other than dating or new experiences? Sophie slumped defeated on the couch. What are you saying? Want to be with Emma? This open relationship situation revealed my true desires. This person doesn't ignore me. Then she cried. Big dramatic sobs would have worked on me a month ago, but all I could think about was how she hadn't cried over how much she'd wounded me. She sobbed. We can fix this. We can go back to how things were. Shaking my head. We can't. Because now I know what it's like to be valued. I won't settle for less. Sophie did something unexpected then. She stormed out with her keys. I'm going to Emma's place to sort this out once and for all. Sophie slammed the door, so I grabbed my phone to tell Emma. I told her Sophie was coming, and she said, let her come. Emma's always been serene. Nothing shakes her. I offered support by coming over. No, Emma responded, I must handle this. 10 years as my best friend. I owe her a lot. I spent the next hour pacing around our apartment, checking my phone every 2 minutes. It felt uncomfortable, like when a storm is coming and the air gets thick. Emma called finally, shakily. She came screaming, Emma said. My neighbors undoubtedly heard everything. She kept screaming about how I betrayed her, was a bad friend, and planned this. You said what? He told her the truth. That I had feelings for you for years but never acted on them since she was my friend. Watching Mom treat you like garbage these last weeks made me realize she never deserved us. Our relationship wasn't intended, but I don't regret it. Sophie didn't like that. She tried to force into my apartment, stating she needed to see whether you were there. She accused me of hiding you when I blocked the door. She's completely lost it, Emma added. She listed all the random occasions we hung out to illustrate we'd been sneaking around for months. She even mentioned your couch moving help last year. Like when she was too busy working to help? Sophie seemed to think any encounter with Emma and I was evidence of an affair. Emma brought me soup when I had the flu, a cover for hooking up. Our group movie nights are just an opportunity to get close. She began crying, Emma said, like sliding down my doorframe crying. Claims she never intended this. My neighbor checked on me. It was humiliating. After Mrs. Chen threatened to call the police over the disturbance, Sophie left. She told Emma she'd ruined everything and would never forgive her. Sophie returned to our house 20 minutes after my call with Emma. She looked awful. She entered and saw me sending Emma updates on my phone and lost it. Are you texting her now? Plan your next gathering? Since when have you two laughed at me behind my back? Sophie, no one's laughing at you. You harmed yourself. I did nothing. I suggested an open relationship to strengthen us, she cried, tossing her pocketbook across the room. I never told you to sleep with my best buddy. No, I said. You just wanted permission to sleep with whoever you wanted while keeping me as your backup plan. She grabbed our photos and gifts and put them in a box. I'm staying with Jessica. My true pal. Someone who wouldn't backstab me. Fine by me, I add. Take whatever you want. That paused her. Just that? Not even try to stop me? Would I? You've stated that you value something other than me or our relationship. She stopped packing and sat on the couch, visibly shrinking. I believed you would always be there. That no matter who I dated, you'd be there when I settled down. The truth ultimately emerged. She experimented without me, but I was her backup plan and promised a happy ending. Well, you guessed wrong, I informed her. I'm not a puppy waiting by the door while you have fun. I have emotions. I deserve more than second place. But you weren't my second pick. I adore you. No, Sophie, you adore having me around when convenient. Differences exist. Her wailing resumed, but I didn't feel anything. Not wanting to soothe her, not guilty, nothing, emptiness. I'll get the rest of my stuff tomorrow, she said, taking up her box. I can't be here right now. After she departed, I called Emma. Just hearing her voice calmed me. That night, we chatted about Sophie, ourselves, and the future for hours. Some of their mutual friends were already taking sides, with most dubbing Emma a backstabber without knowing the full tale. I don't care, she said. Think what you want. I know reality. In my half-empty apartment, I noticed Sophie's stuff were gone. I was relieved. Like I could breathe again. I urged Emma, come over. Settle with me. Yes, she agreed. I was done caring. The next morning Sophie picked up her items. She brought Jessica and 2 other unfamiliar pals. Sophie had told them her story, so they looked at me like I was the bad person while helping her pack. I bought your Xbox for your birthday, she remarked, unplugging it. Fine. Take it. I didn't care anymore. Emma arrived halfway through packing after reading between the lines when I texted her about coffee. Sophie's pals whispered when Emma entered, but Emma ignored them and offered me my coffee. Really? You'll show me this? Sophie snapped. Emma remarked, nobody's flaunting anything. I'm just here to support my boyfriend. Neither of us had used the word before. Sophie appeared slapped. Packing got faster after that. Sophie's companions rushed around, gathering belongings, likely to get her out before another meltdown. After finishing, Sophie stood in the doorway. I really loved you, she whispered. No, I said. You liked having me on call. Differences exist. Emma helped tidy up after they departed. You okay? She questioned, watching me put Sophie's stuff in a donation box. Yeah. First time in months, I am. 2 weeks later. Life has changed since then. Better. Emma and I are doing things right but slowly. We had coffee at Sophie's favorite restaurant last weekend and saw other pals. Ignored us completely. Emma smiled and squeezed my hand. Sophie continues to tell everyone how I cheated. Emma betrayed her, and we always desired each other. Some believe her. Important people don't. Emma brought over her kindergartner's artwork to decorate my fridge yesterday. Too empty, she said. I noticed something in those crayon drawings. This is my wish. Someone who notices details. Who cares about warming my place? Who brings coffee because I didn't answer her text? Instead, I graded Emma's class papers while we watched her new favorite mystery show. Simple, normal, real. Looking back, Sophie's open relationship suggestion was almost helpful, because that wasn't a good idea. But because it revealed my ideal companion. Someone picks me first. Not just when convenient. The thing about life. The worst choices can lead to the best locations. For me, to the proper person. She was always there. Edit. Thanks Reddit for your support. Emma is reading this over my shoulder, chuckling at my description of her. She's constantly happy. By the way, she says hello. My best friend's baby shower turned into a nightmare when she announced that my husband was the father. What happened next shocked everyone. Yesterday, my husband, 32M, and I, 30F, went to my best friend Sarah's, 30F, baby shower. Sarah and I had been great friends since college. We first became roommates, but our connection got stronger as we realized our shared love of similar music. We went to concerts together and created innumerable memories. By our senior year of college, we were nearly inseparable, spending summers together in each other's houses whenever possible. After finishing our schooling, we pursued separate vocations. While I landed a highly sought-after position at a prestigious law firm, my ideal job, Sarah was unsure whether she wanted regular employment. Instead, she chose to look into social media as a source of income. Despite our dramatically different schedules, we made it a point to set aside weekends for each other. We always made time to connect, whether it was on a hike, at a new restaurant, out for drinks, or just staying home to watch movies. I first met Michael on one of our girls' evenings out. He was at his friend's bachelor celebration, and the moment I saw him, I knew he was the one for me. Although we often dispute over who fell in love first, the truth is that we both fell profoundly in love that same night. Fortunately, we've been blissfully married for 5 years, and it's been nothing short of ideal. I often tell Sarah how grateful I am that she invited me to the pub that night. Otherwise, I would not have met my beautiful spouse. Sarah was unmarried for a few years following my marriage before meeting her current spouse, Mark, and celebrating their second anniversary this year. 3 months ago, Sarah announced that she was pregnant, and I was overjoyed. I couldn't wait to watch my closest friend begin this new chapter in her life and hold her baby shortly. I was honored when Sarah entrusted me with organizing her baby shower because I would be the baby's godmother. After exploring numerous themes, we settled on yellow, Sarah's favorite hue. Throughout the planning process, I maintained regular contact with the caterer to ensure that everything was in order and that the cake arrived on schedule. As fate would have it, I had previously worked with the caterer for my brother's wedding, so it was easy to work with her again. On the day of the shower, we arrived early to ensure that everything was great. Mark met us at the door and informed us that Sarah was still getting ready. While setting up, I discovered that the cake was not centered on the table as Sarah requested, so I corrected it. Soon after, the visitors began to arrive, and I was delighted to see several of our old college pals. We hadn't seen one another in years, so we used the chance to catch up and discuss critical life updates. Sarah entered the room wearing a bright yellow outfit that matched her baby shower theme. Everyone congratulated her, and she smiled radiantly. As the ceremony progressed, we all sat down to eat a great lunch. Everything looked to be going well until Sarah called everyone's attention. She stood up and thanked us for attending her baby shower. Then she took a deep breath and said, "I'm thrilled to tell you that my husband, Mark, and I are expecting our first child, and I have someone very special to thank for that." Mark looked at Sarah with a bewildered expression, trying to figure out what was going on. Then, pointing directly at my husband, "Michael," she exclaimed, "Everyone, I'd like to introduce the father of our baby." I nearly choked on my dinner. The room was silent, and I could see everyone was surprised and unsure how to respond. My mind raced to make sense of what was going on. My husband, who dislikes attention and prefers to keep to himself, grabbed my hand hard under the table. I turned to look at him, and he seemed as perplexed as I was. All eyes were on us in an uncomfortable and awkward quiet. I looked to Sarah, looking for an answer. Just to give you some context, my husband and I have been trying to conceive for years with no success. Despite several testing, we have been unable to become pregnant owing to personal medical difficulties. I've only told a few family members and close friends about my difficulties, including Sarah. My husband and I eventually accepted that we might not be able to get pregnant. Rather than dwell on it, we decided to concentrate on our lives as a couple. Sarah openly referring to my husband as the father of her baby was a lie, but I couldn't help but be affected by her statements. My eyes welled up with tears, and I tried not to cry in front of everyone. Sarah jumped up laughing and playfully shoved her husband Mark, shouting, "I was just kidding, guys. This is all just a prank for my Instagram. I've put up cameras everywhere to capture all of your reactions." As everyone glanced around, puzzled, I couldn't help but be annoyed at Sarah for putting us on such an emotional roller coaster. I couldn't believe my best friend felt pointing out my spouse as the father of her child was humorous, especially given our past issues. I turned to look at my spouse and noticed that his face was flushed. He was still holding my hands, and I could sense he was ashamed at the time. Although a few visitors laughed nervously, the room was generally uncomfortable. I noted that Sarah's husband, Mark, did not join in the laughs. He appeared upset rather than amused, and even apologized to my husband. Mark and my husband had grown to be close friends over the years, and I believe he felt sorry for us at the time. I did not want to face Sarah right away and ruin her baby shower. As she continued with the festivities, I attempted to shake the dread that had crept in, but it persisted. After lunch, we played a few games before opening all the gifts. Sarah was the only one who appeared to be having fun, conversing with people and shooting images for social media. My husband had previously informed me privately that he intended to leave after the awful meal, but I urged him to stay. I didn't want the visitors to notice us leaving unexpectedly, so I told him I'd talk to Sarah about it later. I guess Mark, too, was uncomfortable continuing with the celebration since he immediately stood up with an angry expression. He asked Sarah if they could go outside for a bit, and I knew something was about to happen. We could all see and hear them plainly as they spoke, and it was clear that Sarah's joke had made the atmosphere in the room uncomfortable. I observed as their talk heated up, and Mark's motions became increasingly impassioned by the minute. Mark's voice increased, and his comments echoed across the room. "I can't believe you would do something like this. They are our closest friends, and this is not just a harmless prank. You made a mockery of our baby shower and humiliated me in front of everyone." Sarah kept saying she thought it was a harmless prank, but Mark was having none of it. He sternly advised her to grow up and stop making insensitive comments, especially since they were celebrating the birth of their child. The room had become uncomfortably silent. We could all hear their words plainly. My husband couldn't stand it any longer, so he got up and went, saying he'd wait for me in the car. Although my heart grieved for my friend, I recognized how hurt my husband was and could not blame him for leaving. Mark must have recognized the gravity of Sarah's actions as he watched my husband walk out. He glanced at Sarah and responded, "I'm done. I'm done with your immaturity. We're done, I will love this child, but I can't be with you for 1 second longer." When Sarah heard this, she burst into tears, and Mark departed the gathering. We all glanced at each other in surprise, unsure how to respond. My heart ached for my dearest buddy, but I knew my husband needed me more at the time. I did not want to approach Sarah after her painful chat with Mark, so I too left the baby shower without saying goodbye. When I arrived home, I noticed how upset my husband was. We couldn't believe Sarah had pulled such a nasty hoax on us. That evening, Mark texted us an apology, stating he had no idea she would perform such a hoax for a video and was sorry for all we had been through. We were delighted he reached out because we didn't want to have any ill will toward him and fully understood his point of view. Unfortunately, I awoke today to multiple messages from Sarah. She said that she pulled the prank out of stress from her pregnancy and simply wanted to make a viral video for her Instagram. She stated she didn't understand why we were unhappy and wondered why I left without saying goodbye. Then she requested me to meet her today so that I could take her to her gynecologist visit. Starting to get upset again, I told her that I didn't find her joke amusing at all. I told her that what she did was rude and had made both my husband and me very uncomfortable. I also informed her that I needed some time away from her and would be unable to accompany her to her appointment that day. Sarah retaliated by labeling me a shitty friend for abandoning her at such a vulnerable moment. This message truly bothered me. I couldn't believe she'd say something like that just because I needed space. When I told my husband about Sarah's message, he was just as outraged as I was. He urged that we avoid interacting with her until she comprehended the gravity of her conduct. I decided to send Sarah one final message, informing her that I would not be speaking with her until she apologized to both me and my husband for what she had done. I also made it plain that if she attempted to upload the prank film, I would take legal action against her. Rather than apologize, Sarah stated that she did not believe she had done anything wrong. She even suggested that I was jealous of her due to her pregnancy. When I read her response, I couldn't believe my eyes. This woman, who had been my best friend for over a decade, assumed I was jealous of her, despite the fact that I had gone above and beyond to provide her with the ultimate baby shower. Sarah assured me she would not be uploading the film, but she insisted that I put my sentiments aside and assist her at this difficult time. She stated that her husband hadn't returned home the night before and that she needed me more than before. As a non-confrontational person, I found myself in tears after reading her callous messages. Recognizing that I couldn't continue this conversation, I made the difficult decision to block her without further answer. Now I'm conflicted. Part of me regrets not being there for my pregnant best friend, but another part of me is relieved and even grateful that her husband dumped her after the trick she pulled on us. Update 1. It's been a week since my last update, and a lot has happened. First and foremost, I want to highlight that Sarah is not the type of person who likes to joke around. It took me completely by surprise when she pulled off this joke. I've known her for years, and she's never been the sort to perpetrate pranks on others. Anyway, Mark was serious about leaving Sarah. My spouse chatted with Mark over the weekend and discovered that he is actively looking for a divorce lawyer. Since that day, Sarah has been persistently phoning and texting Mark, insisting that he return to her and get over his feelings. However, Mark has entirely ignored her attempts to contact him. She even went so far as to accuse him of sleeping with me, which was absolutely unexpected. The truth is that Mark is simply sorry that his marriage is coming to an end because Sarah is gradually becoming someone he no longer recognizes. Sarah has been unable to reach me directly after I blocked her. Instead, she left a lengthy note for my husband. She accused him of attempting to destroy our friendship, even claiming that he isn't much of a man because he can't get me pregnant. I was upset when my husband showed me the note when he returned from work yesterday. Until now, I had tried to ignore her unexpected change in behavior, figuring that it was caused by pregnant hormones. But her derogatory remarks to my spouse were utterly wrong. That was when I decided to teach her a lesson. I was in charge of both the baby shower and the baby registry. I had spent numerous hours with Sarah discussing her needs and compiling a list of important goods for the baby. However, Sarah insisted that we include ridiculously costly items on the list, things that not all attendees could buy. During the baby shower, I noted that while some guests followed the list, others presented her with practical goods that were not on the list but would still benefit a new mother. Sarah was genuinely upset about it. Originally, I intended to personally give her a handful of the pricey goods she desired. However, after she crossed the line by insulting my husband, I promptly canceled the order and erased the baby registry to ensure she could not access it. If she wanted one now, she'd have to start from scratch. Additionally, I received a message from the caterer about the baby shower a few days ago, but I was too consumed with dealing with Sarah to answer. As a surprise gift to Sarah, I had previously paid half of the catering service's booking fees and planned to pay the remaining balance after the baby shower. However, given everything that had transpired, I became distracted and entirely forgot about it. I called the caterer and explained the situation to Sarah. I informed her that given what had happened, I would not be paying the remaining sum. The caterer was very kind and advised me that because Sarah had booked the catering service under her own name and had communicated with them prior to the baby shower, the final payment would be sent to Sarah rather than me. I was happy that I wouldn't have to spend any more money on someone who had publicly insulted us and continued to cause us harm with her harsh text messages. I also told my spouse what happened, and he found it humorous. Although I had pondered contacting Sarah in the previous few days, once she sent that letter to my husband, I realized that I had gone beyond the point of forgiving. I'm grateful to everyone who backed me and helped me recognize how harmful her conduct was. Looking back, I can recall several occasions when she criticized me, but I never paid much heed to them until now. Anyway, I'm going to remain positive and move on from this experience. I do not want to waste any more time or energy on her. Update 2. This woman is unashamed. Sarah sent me an email several days after I spoke with the caterer. As soon as her name appeared in my email, I knew she was back with her bullshit. In the email, she accused me of being cheap for not paying for the full food service, although knowing I could afford it. She stated I had always been arrogant because I was born into my family's wealth, and then she expressed her relief that I could never conceive. She went on to say that she had been using me for years to make her life easy. Then she repeatedly called me unattractive and implied that I was undeserving of my spouse. She also said that my husband married me just for my money because I was too ugly to be with him. She then called me an expletive for allegedly putting a wedge between her and her spouse. Throughout the email, she used explosive profanity, essentially calling me every foul name under the sun. I showed the email to my husband, who quickly deleted it. Over the years, we've both gone above and beyond to assist this woman. We were there for her when she was single and distraught over several breakups. We've brought her on vacation with us and even paid for her flight and hotel room on multiple occasions. My spouse had even assisted Sarah's parents by restoring their home and lending them money a while back. We'd always treated her like family. Furious, my husband immediately contacted Mark and invited him over for dinner to discuss the problem. When Mark came, we handed him the email, and his expression was utter contempt. He then gave us text conversations from Sarah, in which she used similar profanity and even accused him of cheating. We were deeply shocked by the gravity of the charge, as it was not something to be simply flung around or uttered in anger toward one's spouse. It was difficult to imagine that my former best buddy, whom I had just recently parted ways with, had changed so significantly. Mark told us that he was in contact with a reputable divorce lawyer. According to his lawyer's advice, he never responded to Sarah's texts, no matter how insane or cruel they were, and instead saved screenshots of everything she sent him. He also photographed the email she had sent me so he could show it to his lawyer. Since I wrote the original article, I've had a few DMs from folks who are concerned about Sarah, presuming she has neurological abnormalities as a result of her rapid change in behavior. I'd like to add that she's always had temper issues. Even while we were in college, I saw her lose her temper and use profanity toward others, even in public. Though I really doubt this is a medical issue, my husband and I will nevertheless contact her parents about the situation. We want to tell them everything and show them all of the messages and emails she has sent us. If they believe there is something wrong with her after that, it is their responsibility to take her for a medical checkup. Despite everything, I do not intend to unblock her or answer her email. I have gone above and above for this woman, and for her to continue mistreating, belittling, and disrespecting me is beyond disappointing. I intend to put this experience behind me and focus on enjoying life with my spouse and our dogs. The last few months have been a roller coaster of emotions, to say the least. I hope everyone is having a good start to the new year, just as my husband and I are. We're here in the Maldives, taking a much-needed break from our hectic careers. Given the events of the past year, we decided to take a break from work and unwind. So far, we've spent our days relaxing on the beach and sipping cool cocktails at the resort. Update. Several of you have requested an update, and as expected, Mark and Sarah have officially split. The court case was heated, with Mark's lawyer providing evidence as well as their previously agreed upon premarital agreement. Despite Sarah's best efforts, she and her lawyer were unable to win the case. However, both parties have been instructed to develop a co-parenting plan in the best interests of their child. When we contacted Sarah's parents about her erratic conduct, we discovered that she needed to move back in with them. Apparently, due to her pregnancy and lack of proper work experience, she was unable to support herself for long using only social media. She had no choice but to return to her parents' residence. I also discovered from our mutual friends that after the disastrous baby shower, everyone quickly distanced themselves from her. Nobody wanted to become involved in her drama. Mark did not visit Sarah after filing for divorce until she went into labor. He stayed in the delivery room all night to witness the birth of their daughter. He has since devoted himself to caring for the baby, spending as much time with her as possible, and providing financial support as agreed upon. He still meets up with my husband on weekends, whether to play golf or have drinks in the evening. Sarah was forced to pay the remaining bill for the baby shower caterer after he threatened legal action. Sarah has sent me several emails in which she blames me for her life circumstances. Despite her parents subjecting her to numerous medical tests, she is completely healthy. As a result, there is no excuse for her immature behavior. Hopefully, for the sake of her daughter, she will strive to change and become a better person in the future. My husband and I did not let this situation affect our happy and healthy marriage. We moved on from it within a month and concentrated on our personal and professional lives. We still go on Sunday dates, just like when we first started dating. When I look at my husband, I still feel the same excitement and appreciation that I did when we first met. I'm grateful to be spending my life with him. I'd also like to express my sympathy to all of the couples who have expressed their difficulties with infertility. I want you to know that it's perfectly fine, life takes its own course, and we must trust the journey. If you genuinely love your partner, there are numerous other ways to become parents. However, my husband and I are content with each other's company and have decided to spend the rest of our lives happily together. My stepmom forced my dad to make me break up with my girlfriend for my brother. I moved out. Years later, he blamed me for ruining his life. I, 32 male, have had no contact with my father's family in the past 12 years, and it all starts from his remarriage. My parents divorced when I was about 10 years old because they were no longer in love. At the age of 32, I understand what that means, but as a child, I was astonished and devastated. As a result, I frequently lashed out at my parents, and we attended family counseling together. However, it just felt like my mother was trying to comprehend my point of view, whereas my father had a strong attitude of simply accepting life as it comes to you. As a result, I was closer to my mother than to my father, and I only spent a few months with him at a time. However, when I was 14, my mother died in an accident, forcing me to move in with my father. Those were arguably the saddest days of my life, made worse by the fact that I was essentially the only one grieving. My father had been dating Beth, 49 female, for a few years, and they had become engaged around the same time my mother died. My father placed his future with Beth over my mother and their shared history, so he never showed any symptoms of sadness or grief. This made me feel even more alienated as an adolescent. Beth was also a handful at this time. Because I was an unexpected guest in their home, she expected me to follow her rules and even attempted to take over as a maternal figure. I was plainly reluctant to do this because she couldn't possibly replace my mother in a few months. Worse, she has always favored her prior relationship's son, Josh, 30 male. In true overbearing parent manners, she attempted to meddle, getting him a better spot on the football team, a bigger role in the school play, and so on. To his credit, Josh typically called his mother up on this behavior, but she continued to act like a smother regardless. And no matter how outraged he became by her actions, he still benefited from her string pulling. So my teen years were difficult, dealing with the death of my mother, my whipped father who never said anything negative about Beth, and a distant stepbrother who was always a little awkward around me. All I knew was that I needed to keep my head down and get out after college. I ended up attending UNC, which was in my home state, and to save money, I remained with my father and his family. This was something Dad and Beth had agreed on, and I wasn't freeloading. I paid a little rent and helped with food. However, things became really tense when I began dating this girl, Laura, 31 female, during my college years. I used to bring her home frequently, present her to the family, and it was obvious that Josh had feelings for her. I didn't like it and warned him in private to quit behaving creepy about Laura, but it was clear he still felt for her. At first, I assumed it was just a crush that would pass. But this guy had fallen hard. He was dropping grades in school, messing up his SAT prep, and acting like a lovesick puppy in general. To be honest, it was not my problem. I had attempted to be the responsible elder brother by not calling my girlfriend over, gritting my teeth about the fact that he was infatuated with her and making no attempt to hide it. He didn't understand it, and he probably didn't want to. According to what I know now, Beth had checked in with her son owing to his strange conduct, and he had poured all his girl woes to her. Beth, after some mental acrobatics of her own, decided that I was too responsible for Josh's condition and instructed my father to present an ultimatum. My father sat me down one day and told me, "Son, we had agreed that you would stay with us during your college years, but something has come up. Beth and I believe you are diverting Josh with your hobbies and the friends you invite over. As a result, we need to reach a new agreement." When I heard this from him, I was perplexed. Without knowing the context, I assumed he was talking to my friends who occasionally came over to play Wii games with me, or that I was playing music too loudly at night. I had no idea, so I asked him, "What do you mean, Dad? Are my buddies becoming a negative influence on Josh? I swear we haven't taught him anything bad, and we usually stay out of each other's way, correct?" He said, "Yeah, but that's not what I'm talking about, OP. I think you and I are both aware that Josh has strong feelings for Laura. We were thinking that you could end your relationship with her to keep the family at peace. I mean, we don't think a female should be more important than your brother's health, right?" I laughed aloud when I heard this. It was the dumbest thing I'd ever heard. Still chuckling, I answered, "Sure, Dad, why don't I end a fantastic relationship because your child can't take no for an answer? I've already told him numerous times that he makes Laura uncomfortable, and I rarely invite her over anymore. What's the issue, anyway?" I knew he was skirting the issue, but I was beginning to suspect that Josh had gone overboard with the "if I can't have her, nobody can" attitude. Beth had undoubtedly requested Dad to talk to me about it to placate her son while also ensuring that he did not waste any more time on this girl. I'm not sure how they expected me to roll over on this. It escalated into a massive battle, and I decided to stay with Laura and move out of the house. I packed my bags one day and departed, changing my cell phone number in the process. I slept at a friend's apartment for a few days before moving in with my fiancée. Fortunately, I was in college on a scholarship, and my primary challenges were paying for rent and utilities. But I hustled and worked late to make it happen. At this point, all ties with my family had been severed, and the only people I consider family anymore are a few relatives on my mother's side. It's been 12 years since then, and guess what? Laura and I married, and we both like our professions and lives. In fact, we recently purchased our first home and are trying for a baby. I really believe that leaving my dysfunctional family was the finest decision I ever made. However, a few days ago, someone showed up at my home, causing me to spiral and reflect on my history. Josh found out where I lived and came over to see me, stating he needed to speak with me. I was too surprised to react, so I calmly allowed him in. We caught up a little once he settled down, but he already knew the overall essence of my life, which he had evidently discovered via social media. Then he told me why he was here. He revealed a lot about his obsession with Laura, including his mother's participation. However, he also stated that he never intended for me to leave the house. That was something Beth had designed entirely on her own. He added that when I left, Mom appeared almost relieved that I was gone, and the house seemed very cold and strange to him. The three of them ended up moving out of state a few months after I left, something I was unaware of. Josh did not know how to contact me back then. Throughout this period, He had been feeling bad about the way I had laughed at the scenario, and he had overcome his attraction to Laura. Surprise. However, due to his bad mental health, he ended up hanging out with the wrong crowd in college and eventually dropped out. The situation at home was also horrible. His mother was distraught at his lack of motivation and success, but she never bothered to investigate why he was so miserable. This eventually forced him to leave the house after 10 years, and he has been wandering from place to place ever since, performing odd jobs and hitchhiking. He approached me and asked if I could help him settle in this area, perhaps by getting him a foot in the door at the place where I work. This would be difficult for someone without a degree or other qualifications, as I said clearly. But Josh insisted that I owe him this for abandoning him with our terrible family. He maintained that despite our distance, we were still brothers. He left about an hour ago as I write this, and I am conflicted. I don't believe I owe him anything, yet it's awful to watch him like this. I spoke with Laura about it, and she would want to maintain no contact, NC, with all members of my family, including Josh, but she believes we should support him in some manner. Will I be the a-hole, WWEBTA, if I stop engaging with my stepbrother? Update 1. Based on feedback, I believe it's better to provide Josh with temporary housing and encourage him to look for work on his own. I'm not sure if we'll ever have a meaningful friendship, but you're right. I don't owe him anything for his own mental suffering. I did what was best for myself. Update 2. After a few months, Josh is doing well in our town. He has changed dramatically from who he was previously and has begun working as a junior manager at the local Walmart. The money we gave him has been beneficial, and he is attending night school to earn a degree. To be honest, seeing him now makes me want to be more engaged in his life, but I can't get over the notion that he believes I owe him something for moving out and making him feel terrible. I discussed it with my relatives, and they proposed confronting him. Update 3. I spoke with Josh why he shouldn't expect anything from me. However, I believe he has matured into a fine man who deserves my love. It took him some time to realize the nuances, but he eventually apologized for the unfair load and expressed gratitude for the support. Laura has also softened her feelings against him as he privately apologized for his previous suspicious behavior. I suppose he'll be welcome in our home from now on. I can't say the same for his mother and father. LOL, we both despise them. Not the a-hole, NTA, but in my opinion, neither is Josh right now. Yes, he was fascinated with Laura, but Beth is the actual a-hole for allowing such behavior. NTA, but I would still be cautious with your brother, not because he is doing anything wrong, but because both of you must work together to process the trauma of your narcissistic parents. I also feel like someone like Beth is difficult to cut off. So, is Josh in no contact, NC, with them right now? Am I the asshole for skipping my brother's wedding after his fiancée's reckless prank on my husband led to false accusations and family conflict? Thinking about not attending my brother's wedding because his fiancée's prank on my husband. I am a 25 female, my husband is 30 male, my brother 32 male and his fiancée, 31 female recently came to visit us in our city. My partner and I are new homeowners and they were staying with us for the first time. My brother's fiancée loves Halloween. She is also a Disney adult and has a childlike side to her which comes out sometimes. She's just super involved, absorbed, when it comes to her interests. Anyway, I'm just sharing this for context because my perspective is that she often gets carried away and I genuinely feel what I am going to describe was the result of one of those moments where she just took it too far and suffered some negative consequences. She is, however, taking it as a very personal attack. So we disagreed and the disagreement resulted in my husband cutting their visit short. AKA they were asked to leave. 31F has made comments more than a few times now since meeting him, that my husband gives off a dark vibe. She is always comparing him to characters from various books she reads. It's not necessarily criticism, she always explains that they are compliments. Well, I'm not sure anymore. Her reasons for these comparisons are based on his looks, the general vibe he gives off and his tattoo. He only has one, but it's on his hand. During this recent visit, she mentioned she would love to see someone like him get scared because she can't imagine him getting startled, or letting out a scream. Scaring him became her goal during her stay with us. None of us knew about it, not even my brother. The incident causing all the trouble is that she tried to jump scare my husband in the garage. It was dark and she ambushed him in the garage while wearing a full outfit and mask when he was returning from a run. Well, he didn't let out the scream she wanted. He instinctively reacted by shoving her against the wall. She hit her head and was quite shaken up. Luckily, he realized very quickly by the sound she made that it likely wasn't an intruder. He switched the lights on and pulled her mask off. He told me he was very confused at the moment. Why would she attack him? My husband helped her inside, apologized, made her tea and then called me. I was out with my brother. When we got home, I asked 31F if she was okay and I said her prank was stupid to do because she could have gotten seriously hurt. I don't know if it was what I said that bothered her or if she was just waiting for her partner to come home, but she launched into crying about how my husband used an excessive amount of force knowing it was most likely her just doing a harmless prank. In a nutshell, my husband asked her straightforwardly, "Are you implying I intentionally assaulted you?" She hesitated but chose to say yes, and my husband responded to that with "Get out of my house." I tried to smooth it, but my husband was adamant if that's what she genuinely believes, she's not welcome to stay. 31F chose to stick to her accusation. I decided to side with my husband. My brother is angry with me. He thinks I should have tried to do damage control and let them stay by convincing my husband to lean more into apologizing and placating his fiancée who was just recovering from the situation. He thinks this whole thing would have blown over if I'd helped my husband fold. I find this unfair. My brother was counting on me to handle all this, yet he didn't speak up during the conversation or try to talk sense into his fiancée. My husband remained calm the entire time, but he obviously felt insulted by her remarks, and I think that's valid. Why should I have taken my brother's fiancée's side over my own husband? Especially when I feel like she was wrong for doing all that, then turning around and accusing my husband of wanting to hurt her. My brother says I was short-sighted and should think of their upcoming wedding, but I think he is the one who needs to get his fiancée to apologize to my husband. Editing to add the text below, in an attempt to answer some things that are getting lost in comments. I would like to clarify, when I meant I tried to smooth the situation, I was not taking 31F's side or doubting my husband in any way. I simply tried to get everyone to consider tabling this until emotions had cooled down. And by those emotions, I mean the hysterics of my brother's fiancée. My husband was calm throughout, although there was an obvious finality about his decision. He made his statement and disengaged. As mentioned, my brother looked to me hoping I'd persuade my husband, but I didn't, so they had to leave. The costume. I mentioned in a comment that I didn't get an opportunity to ask that night if she bought an outfit specifically for this prank or if it was my brother's Halloween costume. They go to adult Halloween parties. And we're attending one this weekend 2 hours from where we live. It was part of my brother's costume. A mask, like a golden masquerade one but more coverage. It reminded me of the gold-jeweled animal masks from Squid Game, or something you'd wear to a Rothschild party in the 70s. And she had on a long robe, a cloak with a hood. People asked me to update. I will do that. Please look at my comments too in case I already answered a question you might have. But I think these two were the ones I saw pop up the most. I'm sorry I can't keep up with all the comments. I really tried. I will be showing this thread to my brother. Comments. Comment 1. If she hadn't hidden in the dark garage in a hooded costume, none of this would have happened. There's no way he would have known in the moment that it was her, and I believe anyone would have a similar reaction. Frankly, she's lucky she was not hurt more than she was. There's a direct cause effect here, yet she's not accepting responsibility. I think her behavior falls into the play stupid games category. Your husband doesn't have anything to apologize for, and it's offensive for them to try to obfuscate her responsibility. NTA comment 2. Exactly this. It's one thing to come out of a closet into a well-lighted room, and completely another to jump someone in a dark garage. She's lucky he didn't break her nose or her jaw. Comment 3. I live in Oklahoma. She's lucky she didn't get shot. Comment 4. Texas here. Getting shot is a real possibility. That's beyond stupid on her part. I can guarantee you that I will not be attacked again. Not funny. Comment 5. NTA. Your future SIL is deranged. She attacked someone coming into his own home. He reacted accordingly. How would he know it was her? She faffo. Your brother should have told her it's her own fault. Be prepared for more dramatics once they are married and go LC now. Nothing will ever be her fault. Edited to add, Call your family now and tell them what happened before they spin it and blame your husband for reacting appropriately. Comment 6. Their relationship dynamics are concerning. You might want to distance yourself from her drama. Update. 19 days later. I got a lot of messages requesting an update. I have never made one before, so I hope I am going about this correctly. To recap my previous post, my 25F brother's fiancé, 31F, decided to jump scare my husband, 30M, in our dark garage because she wanted to get a reaction from him and possibly hear him scream. As ridiculous as it sounds, this is the only motive we have been able to get out of her. My husband responded to her jump scare by instinctively shoving her against the wall. Luckily for her, he heard her voice and recognized that it wasn't an intruder. He apologized to her at that moment, helped her inside, and calmed her down. He told me he was gentle and understanding, but once she was seated and started to calm down, he made it very clear to her that her actions were reckless and could have led to serious harm. It's my personal opinion that she didn't like the change in his demeanor and being told off because it meant she was no longer the victim, but the transgressor. In a shitty attempt to get herself out of the hot seat, she decided to accuse my husband of using excessive force, implying that he intentionally assaulted her, even though she was the one who initiated the whole situation. This led to an emotional reaction from my brother and heightened the tension between him and my husband. My husband was zero tolerance about the theatrics, facile and hysterics, and my brother getting riled up about it. He kicked them both out. You can read the details of the first post here. Update. I tried to talk to my brother multiple times after the incident, but each attempt ended in silence because I refused to give in to his demands. He wanted my husband and me to apologize to his fiancée, starting with me downplaying the whole situation so she wouldn't feel bad about her prank. I hesitated to send him the Reddit post I'd made. Initially, I thought it might work against us to make things worse. But his total inability to reason with me or see the situation for what it was became beyond frustrating. Since I couldn't physically deliver a cold hard slap to his face for asking me to be complacent and allowing my husband to be falsely accused of assault, I figured the next best thing would be for him to read all your comments. Following the advice I got here, I tried to get ahead of the situation by informing my parents. My dad, a reasonable and practical man, immediately sided with my husband. His comments were similar to what a lot of people here had said, focusing on how dangerous and reckless the prank was and the ramifications of being falsely accused of assault. My mom, who unfortunately has always favored my brother, suggested we at least hear her out, referring to my brother's fiancée. As vivid as I was about her reaction, I wasn't surprised by it. My dad did try to shut down her skepticism, but she remained on my brother's side for a few days, until I showed them footage from my brother's Tesla, which he had tried to delete. The Sentry thing, sorry if I'm using the terminology incorrectly, I'm not a Tesla owner, recorded part of the interaction in the garage, not the jump scare itself, but the aftermath, which IMO was more crucial. My husband's account was confirmed. He used a measured amount of force to immobilize her and was prepared to escalate if necessary, which is beyond generous for someone to do in a situation like that, and definitely not owed. Many of you speculated that she might have a fixation or even a crush on my husband, and I'm starting to reconsider some past interactions with that in mind. I also misunderstood what dark books she expressed she enjoyed, and compared my fiancé to. I learned from comments here that they are actually a subtype of the romance genre. I didn't know she was comparing him to characters in romance novels because one of the characters I recall her comparing my husband to was from a book about dragons. I genuinely wish I still remembered the names of various characters she's mentioned over the months so I could satisfy my own curiosity, but my brain glossed over the names during conversations. We have a group chat for the wedding, which includes my brother, my parents, my brother's fiancé, and her parents. In that chat, I addressed the incident but didn't share the Tesla footage, only mentioned that it exists. Her parents didn't respond in the chat, though I know they saw the message. Later, her mom called mine. Apparently, they had no idea about the prank. It's hard to say whether they believe me or if they've taken their daughter's side after speaking with her. My brother's fiancé, and my brother, have both extended apologies to my husband, and have requested our presence at their upcoming wedding. My parents, trying to keep the peace, have encouraged us to go, saying it's the honorable thing to do. So, for the sake of family formality, we've decided to attend. However, my husband has made it clear that we'll be there out of obligation. We will be keeping a distance from them going forward. We haven't explicitly stated it, but there will be no future invitations to our home, not even for the holiday dinner we had planned before all this happened. My husband is going to minimize all future interaction with my brother's fiancée. I don't think we'll ever trust her again. I'll try to spend some one-on-one time with my brother to gauge where we stand. Our relationship feels strained, and this incident has made me realize that I lost him to her long before this happened, something I hadn't fully recognized until now. Thanks to everyone for sharing your opinions. A reporter from a news outlet reached out to me, and I remember requesting that if anyone uses my story, I would like them to pass on the following sentiment. I hope that if you share my story, you can help highlight the dangers of ambush-style pranks. These types of pranks create a threatening environment and put everyone involved at risk of serious harm or injury. They are stupid and dangerous. No one should have to feel threatened or be put in a position where their safety is compromised for the sake of a prank. If that's the setup, then it's not a prank. Actions like these will always have consequences, some of which may be irreparable, and no prank is worth the risk of someone getting hurt. Editing to add a little footnote. I understand people get curious and invested, but please consider this my final update. If necessary, I will update again in the future, but it will be unlikely, and I assure you it won't be anytime soon. I got a lot of DMs requesting updates on the previous post, so I thought I'd place this disclaimer here. And another edit to fix the formatting. I wrote this post in my notes app first, which was a dodo move apparently. Sorry, I suck at this. Comments. Comment 1. Still NTA, and your SIL is still lucky that all she got was a shove against the wall. Doing dumb shit tends to get people killed more often than not. Comment 2. Please make sure to keep a copy of that video and, if possible, a written statement from your future SIL. She can always backtrack and try to ruin your husband's life with a false accusation. Oop. We have a copy. Comment 3. That's good. I would still be very careful with your whole family. Your husband was attacked and it seems they are all very happy to keep it hush-hush. I know you are trying your best and I applaud you for it, but please never forget they are willing to appease that psycho no matter the consequences to your husband. Final update. 2 months later. I still get the odd message or notification on this account, which is surprising to me. I always feel bad because I can't feed the interest with a truly juicy update. TLDR, my brother and his partner got married, she is pregnant and we are no contact. This is the last one from me, guys. I did read, or try to read, some of the books I got recommended that would show me what my husband is being compared to. I mostly did this for entertainment purposes. I think some fans of these books will get mad, but I'll just be honest, these books are not for me. I got up to book 3 in AITA, although my skimming increased with each book. I made it through a little bit of the 4th one and that's when my brain just couldn't take any more. I think my husband was supposed to be resand. After reading 3 plus 1 half-ish books, I don't quite see it. I found both Rice and Unfair increasingly annoying as the books went on. I just DNF'd. They're not my people. If I had to pick, Asriel seemed a little more like my husband, maybe, based on just loose vibes that I got. I also read Fourth Wing, just the one book, and I won't be reading the rest of the series. I think my husband was supposed to be Zayden. He's actually more of a Liam personality-wise. These were the main 2 books. Anyway, the actual update. My brother and his fiancée got married. She was pregnant. My mom had already suspected apparently, but the pregnancy was announced during the wedding. The pregnancy has made my parents kind of soften. My mom is distracted about becoming a grandma. It hasn't changed how I feel. I still think it's a mistake that he's marrying her, and I'm worried about him. But I also don't have any intense feelings. It's his life. My husband didn't have to attend the wedding. We all said he could skip it, but he wanted to accompany me. Nothing dramatic happened at the wedding. We did keep it a bit of a distance, so maybe we missed any drama if there was some. I did learn something disturbing from someone who has spent more time with my brother's wife. She had apparently made some disgusting comments about my husband in the past. She had said he looks like a Legend comics character. It feels nasty to direct quote her, so I will just paraphrase. She basically implied he is so essayable and or would be doing the essay or something. I don't know if any of this has to do with the context of these types of comics. This was all apparently said in a WhatsApp chat, but no proof of the conversation because the person who told me said she got a new phone and didn't back up her WhatsApp. I don't have any reason to believe she would make this up though. I didn't confront my brother's wife about this comment because it was said a long time ago and it just doesn't seem worth bringing up. We have just continued our no contact. Like I said, pretty boring update, but it's truly my final one now that the wedding is over. Comments. Comment 1. At this point I would go NC. The parents are useless, the husband's reputation is being tainted and there's nothing op and the family can do except just accept that's how it is. Loser if you'd ask me. There will be potentially more hideous incidents in future if the husband keeps attending op's family gathering where the sill would be there, and I'm afraid it will affect op's marriage sooner or later if no NC at this point. YDK about you guys, but I prefer to prevent than repair. There are some things in life you cannot repair. Comment 2. Wow, that's crazy. Definitely keep your distance from SL and maybe put up some more cameras. I pity your brother because he's in for a rough ride with the person he chose to marry and procreate with, but then again he doubles down and backs her outrageous claims. Hopefully you can move on without any more issues with the crazy SL. I would be wary of family dinners or holidays without recording them to protect yourselves. My wife hid that she's asexual. I asked for a divorce, she refused, and even tried to open the relationship by offering her best friend to me. My wife, 29F, and I, 34M, have been married for 4 years, and up until a year and a half ago, things were fantastic. Our marriage began to deteriorate after there was a significant drop in sex between us, not intimacy, just the actual sex part of the relationship. We would still cuddle and have deep intimate moments talking and just being around each other, but she kept rejecting my attempts at taking things further past kissing. Now we have had no problem communicating, so I made sure to address it early, and we talked and made adjustments. We both made sure to stay in shape. We tried being more adventurous. We went to couples therapy, job counseling, and even tested both of our hormone levels. Everything was normal. Each solution would work for a little while and then we'd be back to having sex maybe once a month. I asked her several times if she was no longer attracted to me, to which she denied every time. I asked her if I was falling short in the relationship in any other way, to which she said no. Well, about a month ago, she got back from her therapy session and told me that she believes that she's asexual and that's the reason for her libido being non-existent as of late. I was definitely confused because we had such great sex for a while in the beginning of our relationship, but her telling me that she's now asexual was heartbreaking because everything else is great. Obviously, I'm not going to force her to have sex. So we had a long conversation about our relationship and I came to the conclusion that we should get a divorce. I say I because she immediately rejected the idea and said we would figure something out and wouldn't talk to me about it anymore. I didn't know what to say, so I dropped it. Well, 3 weeks go by, without sex, and I decided that I have to do this for my own mental well-being, so I filed for divorce and had her served with the papers. Last week when I got home from work, she was going about the day like nothing was wrong. I asked her if she signed the papers and she flat out said, "We are not getting a divorce," and changed the subject and acted like things were normal. Obviously I thought this was crazy, so I stopped her and said I couldn't be in a marriage devoid of sex, and I mentioned that I was being incredibly fair with our divorce. She can keep the house that we bought and paid for with cash. She paid 1/3, I paid 2/3. I'd take all of the debt, which isn't much. We'd split our savings and investments in half. And she can keep 2 of our 3 paid-off cars. I only wanted to keep my sports car. Thankfully we don't have kids. I love her and want her to be comfortable, and I have no problem starting over since I make a good income. But she won't budge or talk about the divorce. This brings us to 2 days ago. I get home and go to our bedroom and find my wife's friend, 27F, in our bed naked. I immediately shut the door, said sorry, and went looking for my wife. I found her in the kitchen and asked what her friend was doing here, and she said that she was here for me. I put 2 and 2 together and said that I'm not having sex with other women in place of the woman I chose to marry. She was adamant on saying that I could sleep with her whenever I wanted and that her friend agreed to it. I couldn't believe things would get this far, so I went back to our bedroom and asked her friend to leave. I packed a bag and I've been staying in a hotel nearby since that night. My wife, Her mother and her sister keep calling me, but I'm just not interested in hearing what they have to say. This feels like a trick. I just want this whole thing to be over. Does anyone have advice? Is this some kind of ploy for alimony? We do have a prenup? Should I just contact my lawyer and try to force the divorce? I'm really uncomfortable with this entire situation. Edit. We talked last night. I'll update when I get home from work. Edit 2. Here's the update if anyone's interested. I'll try to keep this as concise as possible. I feel overwhelmed, so I probably won't bother with another update after this one. I don't know. My wife came to my hotel last night and we talked about everything. She told me the full truth and what's going on in her mind. A few of you commented on this in the last post, so you were right. She has always been asexual. She and her whole family has known this since she was 16. Apparently this is the reason why her last long-term relationship of 3 years ended. He broke up with her after the sex between them diminished to being non-existent after the first year. She told me that sex is easier for her in the beginning when emotions are running high, but she still needs to force herself to have it. I knew they broke up due to unresolvable differences, but I didn't ask for details, nor did she tell me. After a lot of apologies and crying, she told me that I was the first person she was able to tolerate sex with for so long, and that she did enjoy it a handful of times. But after a while she still felt like she was being raped. I broke down after hearing this and started kicking myself for not catching on to any of this. She said she tried her best to please me as much as she could. She still doesn't want a divorce, and she doesn't want the house, cars, or the savings. She just wants me and is ready to do whatever it takes to keep me. She even said that she would sign a postnup stating this. As for her friend, she was there during her last breakup and helped to support her through it. My wife went to her after I brought up divorce and talked things out. Her friend suggested that she open the relationship for me, but she said she didn't want me sleeping with strange women, so her friend volunteered herself to be the one that sleeps with me. My wife thought this was a great idea, which led to the fiasco at our house. I won't comment on her appearance because it doesn't matter, and I don't blame the friend. My lawyer got back to me. You were all right. I don't need her permission, but I will have to wait if I want to push it through. I asked her why she lied to me this entire time, and she said she was tired of being rejected after revealing she was asexual, so she convinced herself that she would be able to force herself to have sex during the relationship. The hormone testing, the sessions in couples therapy, and all of our solutions was just her buying time to find another way around sex, or give herself enough time to build up the strength to start regularly having sex with me again. Our conversation ended with us holding each other in bed crying for a couple of hours. No, we didn't have sex. She pleaded with me to hold off on the divorce to look for a solution together and left my hotel room. I'm now sitting alone typing this fucking post. I guess I found out that we don't share everything with each other. Thank you to everyone who has messaged me directly. I'm still trying to get to all of them. I don't know what I'm going to do. Comments. Comment 1. You did right, bro. Let your attorney handle this. Do not have sex with anyone until your attorney says you're in the clear. Oop. That's my only course of action right now. I'm going to look for an apartment tomorrow. Comment 2. Also, why are you offering her so much? Split the marital property equitably and move on. If you even have the slightest inclination that she's trying to set you up, then don't just roll over and let her have everything, because that won't be enough for her and her attorney. Comment 3. This, OP. I don't see any reason that the judge wouldn't just divide the assets and liabilities 50-50. I understand wanting to offer her more to get her to sign, but if she's not willing to do that and you have to go to court about it, you're going to want to tighten up so you have some leverage. OP. She has been wonderful to me otherwise. I don't feel like she should be punished for finding out who she is. I want her to be comfortable because she doesn't make nearly as much as I do. I can bounce back with no issue. She'll still have to work to provide for herself unless she marries another high earner or becomes one herself. A fresh start doesn't scare me at all. Comment 4. That's nice of you, but she's being manipulative and sketchy as hell with this latest stunt. You being so nice about it is fair enough. Comment 5. I don't know if she's being maliciously manipulative. Most likely she's terrified of him leaving her and is in denial or doing everything possible to get him to stay, or both. He says everything is perfect except for the lack of sex, so she sees this as they can stay together if she provides him someone to have sex with that isn't her. It's not a black and white situation. And while I agree the wife's actions are not appropriate, I think she's acting out of fear and love. Again, that doesn't make it okay, just that we don't have enough information to say that she 100% is trying to trap him in anything. Update. 2 weeks later, I don't think I can link my previous post, so just go to my profile I guess if you care to read the op. I've tried to read every comment, message and take to heart what most of you had to say. Also please stop messaging me. I can't respond to everyone, it's too much. I'll make this as short as possible. After my last update, my wife asked me to meet with her about a week later to discuss things with her. I've been staying at an extended stay since that night with her friend. We met at our house and talked for a few hours. She started off with a ton of apologies for how she acted, her lying about her sexuality, and not taking my sexual needs more seriously. Before I could say anything, she presented a signed post-nup agreement she had drafted with a lawyer stating that she doesn't want anything, the house, the cars, savings, everything. I felt like the biggest asshole for thinking that she was tricking me for more money. I asked her if she was serious, and she told me to take the post-nup with me and sign it when I'm ready. I still haven't signed it, it's in my backpack. I told her that I still think divorce is our best course of action and that we both deserve to find someone who matches our needs. She still refused and borderline begged me to reconsider. She started crying and so did I. Seeing her like this was devastating. I told her that finding other women to sleep with me wasn't going to work. What if I develop feelings for them? What if I get one of them pregnant? Do we expect her to get an abortion? She said we'll figure it out as we go along, and to please give her more time to work on other solutions. She set up appointments for sex and hormone therapy, and it's seeing a sex guru. I said that it sounds like we're going through the same things again, but she was adamant and pleaded with me to wait. There were more apologies on both sides and we kissed for a while before ending the conversation. Then I went back to my hotel that night. A few days later I tried texting her but she didn't respond, so I called her dad. I'm avoiding her mother and sister since they are saying the same things as my wife. Her dad told me that she moved back home and has been holed up in her room since our talk. She called out of work. He told me that she's barely eating, bathing, or talking to him or her mom. He asked me what I was going to do, but I didn't have an answer for him. He just said he understands and said he would be here to talk anytime I wanted to. So I went back to our house and a good portion of her stuff was gone. The whole place feels empty. I've been sleeping in one of the spare rooms. I'm planning on flying to my mother's house in a couple weeks to spend time with my family to decompress from this entire situation. I'm still on the divorce side of the fence, but I guess there's no rush. Thank you to everyone for your insight and concern. Seriously, I know we're all strangers, but most of you have been a huge help to my mental health. Seriously, thank you. Also, my cousin uses Reddit and reached out after he found my last post and asked me to shout him out if I made an update. Love you, Virgil. Thank you for being there for me. I think I'll just make a quick edit to this post once we reach a resolution for anyone that cares. Comments. Comment 1. It's a tough situation, but if having an intimate physical relationship with your wife is important, I think you know what needs to be done. Sucks for everyone involved. Godspeed. Comment 2. Sex in a relationship is like the toilet in your house. It's not the first thing you mention when talking about it, but if it's not working then it's immediately noticed. Update, 10 months later? Hey everyone, in hindsight I regret making these posts because I think I received too many pieces of advice. I keep thinking I should have just handled it internally with just family. I don't regret my decisions, I just wish I gave myself more time to think. Anyway, here's the update. I'll keep it short. The divorce was finalized months ago, our house was sold along with one of the cars, and my ex-wife is still living with her parents. I had a little more than 2/3 of the proceeds wired to her account, but the last time I talked to her dad she hadn't touched a dime. I was informed that she checked into a mental health clinic, but I don't know how long she was there or what her current state is. I changed my number, but her dad has emailed me a few times to check on me throughout this last year, which breaks my heart because he's a great man. Him playing both sides of the fence like this really made everything go a lot smoother. Other than not warning me, which I honestly don't think it was his place to, he's been a huge help. I moved back to my home state to be closer to my family. I may leave to go to another state again. I don't know, I'm not sure yet. I feel numb from this whole thing. Not much of a drinker, so I've been smoking a ton of pot and working out to occupy my mind. To everyone who didn't get a response from me in my messages, I'm sorry, but there were just too many. I responded to as many as I could mentally handle. I think that's it. I can't imagine that there would be any additional questions, but I'll answer whatever I can. Comments. Comment 1. Wow. Hope you both find some type of lasting happiness. You move on. Your ex is hopefully finding some peace. Comment 2. I'm not so sympathetic to his ex-wife. She lied to him for years, misled him, and drew this out and took years of his life away trying to live her version of happiness at his expense. It's unfortunate she's taking it so hard, but what she did to him was cruel and selfish. Comment 3. Do you love her at all? I feel like men are all thinking with dicks like, is there no love if there's no sex? Like, how is being asexual worth a surprise divorce with no discussion? And how you are supported by people on Reddit is just a joke. Love does not equal to sex, and if you're willing to dump the woman you made vows to based on sex, then you don't understand love at all. You won't find love ever, and anything you find going forward is not going to be more than lust. OOP. We tried to fix things for over a year. I understand where you're coming from, but I guess my question to you is, what can you live with and without in a relationship? Money, attraction, respect, intimacy, non-sexual, security? Which one of these are you comfortable with losing in your relationships? Am I the asshole for cutting off my parents after my mom refused to care for me postpartum, even though she did it for my siblings? Throwaway account, and my English writing is really bad. Please bear with me. So I, 28 female, am 30 weeks pregnant with my first child and am about to move to another state, and mom has this thing where she takes care of my siblings when they give birth until they recover. She has done it for my older sister and my brother's wife, so I thought that she would do the same thing with me too, but a week ago she told me that she couldn't because it is too far away. We got into a fight about the whole thing, and I told her to get out of my house, and now we are not talking. Before you judge me and say that my mom isn't obligated to take care of me, I will tell you that it isn't about mom taking care of me. It was never about that. I am that one child in the family who nobody really cares about. My parents always claim that they love and treat us all equally, but man, is it obvious that they love me a little bit less than the others. I always thought that maybe I am adopted and that's why they don't care about me that much. Well, I am wrong because I am 100% theirs. It is always about how my other siblings are doing or how mom and dad are suffering, but it is never about me. It was never about me from the beginning. I rarely celebrate even if it is supposed to be my day. My birthdays? They rarely celebrated because mom and dad forgot, or they just threw everything in the house and called it a birthday. High school graduation party? Nope, my parents have already wasted a lot of money for my big brother's college graduation party, so they can't do that, but they will make sure to make it up to me. Do you think that ever happened? I will give you a minute or two. If you guessed no, then congrats, you guessed right. Yay! They shared the wedding expenses of my siblings' wedding, but since my husband came from a good family, they don't have to share wedding expenses. Not my words. I have always been the therapist who listens to my mom and dad's rough day, or the one who needs to help mom because my older siblings have a lot of school work to do, or because my younger siblings are too young to do that kind of work. They always tell me that I am a good daughter, but I am never the one who they brag about to their friends. I did everything in my power to make them proud, but my achievements will always be below my siblings. I have tried to talk to them about how I feel multiple times before, but the only thing I get is a hard scolding about how I was getting spoiled. I hated my life until I got out of that house, but I never had the courage to let go of them, thinking that they would change. Well, my mom just proved me wrong. Mind you that my older sister lives a whole ass ocean away from Yo, but mom decided that taking a 10+ hour flight to another continent twice was not hard at all. But all of a sudden, and taking a 4-hour ride to my home was too much. Especially when I am in a place where I don't know anyone except my husband. I am so fucking tired of them putting everyone else above me. So, I will make things right between us until I leave because I don't want to end things on a bad note, and when I get to my new house, I will just cut all contact between us. I don't think that I have the energy to do all of this crap anymore, and besides, I have my lovely husband with me, so I will be all right and build myself a new family where I am truly appreciated and loved for who I am. Note, I am the third out of 5 children. My younger siblings are twins. Comments. Comment 1, NTA. Tell her you can't keep in touch, it is too far away. Comment 2, NTA. Yes, I agree with you. Make nice with your mom while you're visiting this time and minimize contact when you get back to your own home. It could be that your mother wants you to beg and plead. Oh, mommy, pretty please, come help me, I need you. But my reaction is F that game playing. Put your energy on your husband and build a new support network where y'all live now. Comment 3. NTA. Put them on a strict information diet. Stay off socials. Inform your husband and his family that you want nothing posted on social media. Do not let them know when the baby is born or when you go into labor. Do not answer the phone, respond to email, texts, etc. Put them on a ban list at the hospital if you have to. Gather more evidence of them singling you out, then when asked by others, you give them the full story. Maybe shame will cure them. Update, 3 months later. Hello. First, I would like to thank everyone for their kind advice. I was honestly shocked when I saw all of these messages. I really appreciate it. A lot has happened since my last post. I tried to call my parents, but they were blocked and I couldn't reach them, but I was determined to get the closure that the younger version of me wanted. So I called my older brother and I asked him if we could meet up and talk about the situation. He told me that he won't meet up with me after what I've done to our mother, and he berated me saying that I was an ungrateful person and that mom is in a lot of stress and pain because of me. I told him that it wasn't fair for him to just assume that I was the villain and that he couldn't even understand my point of view because they didn't treat him like they treated me my whole life. He knew that they treated me like their personal chef, maid and therapist for years, but they couldn't even give me the love and attention that I wanted for once in my whole damn life. He basically screamed at me through the phone that I was a piece of trash for saying that, and that mom and dad treated us all equally, but I was just a damn narcissist who can't think about anyone but myself. I tried to talk, but my emotions got the better of him and I started breaking down on the phone and he hung up on me. I even started asking myself if I was really the narcissist that my family seemed to think of me. But my husband came to the rescue and helped me through all of this, but the doubt that maybe I was in the wrong still lingered in my head. I guess my brother told my parents that I called him because dad called about 2 days after that and asked me to meet up at their house. I was about to say no, but I couldn't because his voice was filled with remorse, so I thought that maybe, just maybe, we could get past the whole thing and I could drop the thought of cutting contact even if my mom doesn't want to help out. After like 3 days of talking to my dad, me and my husband went to their house to talk. I thought that it was going to be me, my husband and my parents talking, but they invited my brother and his wife. As soon as we sat, my dad started talking about how disappointed he was with me and that things shouldn't have led to this. I told him that he was right, things shouldn't have escalated to where they are now, but I assumed that since mom helped take care of my sister and my brother's wife, she would do the same, but she just favorited everyone else above me and it was frustrating. I told them about how I felt for the past years and I told them everything that I said to you guys, but all of them acted like they didn't care, which honestly hurt like hell. I knew at that moment that I didn't mean anything to them, so why was I fighting to be a part of a family that didn't want me? My husband was going to speak, but I told him not to. Everyone gave their opinions about it, basically blaming me, and then dad asked me if I wanted to say anything to mom. I told her that I was sorry because I didn't want any type of bad blood between us before I close this chapter and move on with my life, but she didn't say anything back, and dad said that we needed some time cooling off and setting some boundaries, and I guess that was it between us. In the next 2 weeks we were packing and leaving the state. I didn't tell anyone about where my new house will be. Only once I got there and settled down did I write a long message about everything they did and how I felt, and at the end of the message I told them that I was completely cutting contact with my parents and older brother. I changed my phone number and blocked all of my family from my social media. And you know what? My life has never been this peaceful in a long time. I am happy about everything and my baby will arrive any day now. It is honestly stressful, but I love it so much. We hired a helper around the house because why not? Now my day consists of sleep, take a walk, eat some more, have back and hip pains, and repeat, which honestly isn't that bad. Thank you for reading comments. Comment 1. Sounds like you finally choose peace over drama. Wishing you all the happiness with your little one. Comment 2. Yup, Sometimes family is just a title. You don't owe them anything if they don't treat you with love and respect. Comment 3. Blood doesn't mean loyalty. You gave them every chance, and they showed you exactly who they are. Now you get to build a family that actually deserves you. Wishing you nothing but peace and joy with your little one. I cut off my freeloading sister, but she stole my identity. My parents enabled her, yet I walked away, choosing self-respect over their toxicity. Do you know how some individuals joke about becoming the family bank? For me, it wasn't a joke. It was my life. For 5 years, I'd been my sister Melissa's unofficial treasurer, paying her rent, electricity, groceries, and even the occasional splurge for her daughter Ellie. All while working a blue-collar job where overtime wasn't a bonus, but a necessity. Melissa was not always like this. She once had a husband and a sense of stability. But when her rage became too much for him to manage, he walked out, leaving her with a stack of bills and a kid. That was when the family baton of responsibility was passed to me. Our parents, reveling in their retired golden years, made it obvious that they had no intention of intervening. "You're young and capable, John," Mom said to me when I brought it up. "You can handle it." So, I handled it. I tightened my belt, worked additional shifts, and put my own aspirations on hold. All to ensure Melissa and Ellie did not go without. I told myself it was the correct thing to do. Who else was going to help them? But then, a year ago, Melissa landed a nice job. Nothing flashy, but it included a paycheck, benefits, and the opportunity to finally get back on her feet. I decided I'd help out for a little longer until she adjusted. But as the months passed, I observed something troubling. Melissa wasn't battling anymore. At family dinners, she'd nonchalantly mention her most recent shopping trip or the new gizmo she'd purchased for Ellie. At first, I stayed quiet, thinking to myself that she deserved to have some fun after going through so much. But last week, she pushed me too hard. We were at Mom and Dad's house for dinner. Melissa, Ellie, our parents, and Uncle Rob. The supper was the usual commotion, with Ellie refusing to eat her veggies while Mom and Dad spoke about their most recent cruise. Then Melissa dropped a bomb. "I'm thinking about buying this amazing purse," she added, displaying a snap from her phone. "It's only $500, but it's designer." I paused mid-bite to comprehend her remarks. "You're thinking about spending $500 on a purse while I'm still paying your rent?" I inquired, my tone calm but forceful. How did she respond? She laughed. "Oh, don't be so cheap, John." Something inside of me cracked. 5 years of sacrifice, forgoing vacations, nights out, and things I desired, all for her. So I was cheap? I set down my fork, my appetite gone. "Cheap?" I repeated, my tone chilly. "Let's talk about cheap, Melissa. Like how I've been covering your rent while you buy purses. Or how I've sacrificed everything while you pretend you're struggling. You know what? I'm done." The room became silent. Mom and Dad were now fascinated by their mashed potatoes, while Melissa looked at me in bewilderment. "What do you mean, done?" she inquired, her tone skeptical. "I mean no more rent, groceries, or handouts," I added, rising up. "You're on your own." Uncle Rob sat back in his chair and blew a low whistle. "Way to go, John," he said, clapping my back. "You don't owe anyone anything." Melissa spluttered, attempting to formulate an answer, but I didn't wait. I grabbed my jacket and went for the door, pausing only to say, "And if you think this is temporary anger, you're wrong. It's time for you to grow up, Melissa." I departed with my heart racing in my chest. As I drove home, relief and rage struggled for control. 5 years as the family bank, and this is how I was treated. Little did I know, the aftermath from that dinner was only the beginning, and what happened next would put me to the test more than I ever imagined. Melissa's stillness was frightening. Days passed, then a week, and I heard nothing from her. No angry texts, no guilt-tripping voicemails, nothing. It seemed too quiet, like the calm before a storm. I kept telling myself I had done the right thing, but the nagging feeling that something was brewing kept me on edge. That something appeared late one night in the shape of a knock on my door. When I opened it, I wasn't expecting to see my parents standing there, their faces a mix of irritation and self-righteous outrage. "We need to talk about Melissa," Mom stated without hesitation, entering inside as if invited. Dad followed and closed the door behind him. I crossed my arms and leaned on the kitchen counter. Do we? Because I think I've said everything I need to. She's struggling, John, Dad said, his voice heavy with disappointment. Ellie doesn't deserve to suffer because of your stubbornness. I couldn't help but chuckle, and it wasn't out of amusement. Let me get this straight. You two, who have spent the last 5 years on cruises and at wine tastings, want to lecture me about family responsibility? When exactly did you decide to care? That's not fair, Mom exclaimed, her face flaming. We're retired. You're young and capable. And she's your daughter, I replied, my wrath boiling out. Funny how she's suddenly my responsibility now that you don't feel like dealing with it. The conversation continued in a familiar pattern of shame and blame. Mom's voice rose as she lectured me on family loyalty. Dad groaned deeply, shaking his head as if I were a disappointment. You're being cold, John. Mom eventually said, her tone accusing. This isn't like you. Maybe not, I said, approaching the door and holding it open. But it's how I'm going to be from now on. Thanks for stopping by. They departed muttering, but I felt strangely relieved. For once, I had stood my ground. The relief lasted exactly 2 days. Melissa contacted me out of the blue. I considered not responding, but curiosity got the best of me. What do you want? I inquired, ignoring pleasantries. Her tone was very light. Just wanted to let you know, I'm moving out of the apartment next month. Why? I asked, frowning. Can't afford it without me? Oh, I can afford it, she responded, her tone haughty. I just don't want to. I'm moving back in with Mom and Dad. That hit me like a blow in the stomach. What? They offered, she stated nonchalantly, as if it were no great thing. They said they didn't want Ellie to suffer because of your little tantrum, so I'm putting my stuff in storage and moving into the guest room. Should be cozy. I could not find the words. The thought of Melissa reclining at my parents' house, rent-free and responsibility-free, while they made excuses for her was nearly too much to handle. Oh, and one more thing, she said, her voice full of phony tenderness. You might want to check your credit report. Just a heads up. My stomach sank. What the hell does that mean? She laughed. You'll find out. Bye, Johnny. I hung up and instantly entered my credit card account. What I witnessed made my blood run cold. There it was. A new credit card account in my name, with a staggering balance. Thousands of dollars were charged to stores that I had never visited, all of which had opened within the last 6 months. Melissa had taken more than just my money. She had also stolen my identity. My hands shook as I stared at the computer, rage, bewilderment, and betrayal whirling through my chest. Helping her was one thing. Being fooled for a fool was something quite else. It wasn't just about shutting her off anymore. This was wartime. 2 weeks later, I was still dealing with the consequences of discovering Melissa's credit card fraud, hours on the phone with credit card companies and a lawyer. I submitted a police report not out of choice, but because my lawyer advised me to do so. I knew it would worsen things, but Melissa had given me no choice. Then came the shocker. I was at work, trying to concentrate on a project, when my phone vibrated with a text message from Uncle Rob. Did you know your parents took out a loan? Thought you should hear it from me. A chill ran down my spine. A loan? For what? I called Uncle Rob immediately. He did not mince words. They're paying off the rest of Melissa's debt, he stated plainly. She went crying to them after you cut her off, and they decided to bail her out. They took a loan against the house to do it. My jaw clenched. You've got to be kidding me. I wish I was, Rob responded. They didn't want you to find out, but I figured you deserved to know. I hung up, my blood blazing. They had gone over my back, enabling Melissa once more and jeopardizing their own financial stability in the process. Worse, they expected me to remain quiet and pick up the pieces when everything fell apart. That evening, I drove directly to my parents' place. When I walked in, they were sitting in the living room with Melissa, laughing as if everything was perfect. As soon as they saw me, their mood changed. John, Mom said cautiously. What are you doing here? I'm here because I just found out about the loan, I explained, my voice quivering with barely restrained rage. Care to explain? Mom's face turned pale, but Dad stood up, his look hard. We did what we had to do, he explained. Ellie doesn't deserve to suffer because of your stubbornness? And what about you? I questioned, looking at Melissa. What's your excuse this time? Stealing my identity wasn't enough? Melissa crossed her arms, her voice defiant. I did what I had to do, John. You cut me off. What was I supposed to do? You were supposed to grow up, I snapped. But instead, you ran back here and dragged them down with you. I turned to my parents. And you let her. You're willing to jeopardize your own future just to enable her lies and manipulation. Do you even hear yourselves? We're protecting our family, Mom stated forcefully. No, you're enabling her, I responded. And I'm done being a part of it. Don't you dare walk out on this family, Dad shouted as I turned for the door. My heart pounded in my chest as I paused and returned my gaze to all of them. You already walked out on me the moment you decided my sacrifices didn't matter. I've been your scapegoat long enough. From now on, you can clean up your own messes. Melissa smirked. You'll be back, John. You always come back. I met her look with a hard voice. Not this time. I walked out and slammed the door behind me. My phone was filled with angry texts from my parents and Melissa for the rest of the night. I disregarded them all. For the first time in years, I wasn't burdened by their expectations. I wasn't their banker, fixer, or fool anymore. I was free. This wasn't just disobedience, it was emancipation, and I had no intention of turning back. The fallout was immediate. Within hours of leaving my parents' place, the family group chat exploded. Messages from my dad and Melissa covered the screen, each more dramatic than the previous. Mom. You are pulling our family apart, John. Dad. You were raised to be better than this. Melissa. Ellie is heartbroken. You are a selfish coward. I put down my phone, tightened my jaw, and went for a walk. The night was crisp and peaceful, in stark contrast to the pandemonium raging in my mind. I felt raw, angry, sad, and relieved. For years, I'd carried the weight of my family's expectations, and now that I'd let go, I wasn't sure what to do with myself. The next day, I got an unexpected call from Uncle Rob. Heard about what happened, he answered sternly. Good for you, kid. Someone needed to stand up to them. I exhaled a breath that I hadn't realized I was holding. Thanks, Rob. I don't feel like the hero right now. You're not the hero, he stated bluntly. You're just the only one with any sense. His words provided me with a sense of validation. Still, the days that followed were difficult. My parents had stopped phoning, but the silence was not comfortable. I knew they were furious, and I knew it wasn't over. Melissa wasn't as quiet. She resorted to social media, writing vague yet pointed messages. It's sad when the people who are supposed to love you the most are the first to abandon you. And my personal favorite, family is supposed to be forever. Guess not for everyone. The genuine breaking point came a week later, when my folks invited me to supper. Despite my better judgment, I went. Perhaps I still hoped for a chance at reconciliation. When I arrived, the situation was tight. Melissa was already present, sitting at the table with a smug grin. Ellie was nowhere to be found. We need to talk, Dad said, his voice heavy. About how I'm the bad guy? I inquired, sitting down. About how you've handled this, Mom asked, her voice harsh. You didn't have to humiliate Melissa or threaten her with the police. She committed fraud, I stated, my voice rising. What did you expect me to do? Clap and say, great job, sis. You could have handled it privately, Dad retorted. You didn't have to escalate things. Privately? I scoffed. You mean quietly, so no one would see how you've enabled her for years? Melissa finally spoke up, her voice filled with wrath. You're just bitter because I didn't need you anymore. I rose up, my chair grinding loudly on the floor. You've never needed me, Melissa. You've just used me. And now you've dragged them down with you. John, Mom replied, her voice softening. Please, for Ellie's sake. This isn't about Ellie, I interjected. This is about you refusing to let her face the consequences of her actions. And I'm done being a part of it. I fled without looking back. That night, I sat on my couch, rehearsing the confrontation in my mind. The rage, the hurt, and the treachery. Everything was there. But there was something else. A sense of freedom. For the first time in years, I wasn't shouldering their burdens. In the weeks that followed, I immersed myself in my life. I resumed going to the gym, reconnected with friends, and focused on work. Uncle Rob had been correct. This was not about being a hero. Uncle Rob and I had supper one night, and he told me how proud he was of me. "You're finally living for yourself," he told me. About damn time. It was not easy. The guilt persisted, especially when Ellie called one evening and asked why I hadn't come around anymore. I promised her that I loved her and would be there for her no matter what, but my determination remained firm. I'd learned a terrible lesson. Family does not entail losing your happiness, limits, or dignity. Sometimes, love entails stepping away. And as the days passed into weeks, I discovered something I hadn't felt in years. Tranquility. In the months that followed, my life changed in ways I never anticipated. Initially, the quiet from my parents and Melissa was deafening. For years, I was their safety net, go-to problem solution, and banker. Now it was just me. The lack of their continuous demands felt unusual, but it also allowed for something I hadn't experienced in a long time: serenity. I began to fill my days with activities that brought me delight. I finally joined a recreational basketball league after putting it off for years due to job and family obligations. I finally took a weekend trip to the mountains, a dream I had put off so many times that it began to feel like a fantasy. Standing by the shore of a peaceful lake, with no one texting me about bills, rent, or guilt-tripping me into solving their problems, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Freedom. Work became a source of pride once again. Without the shadow of family trouble hanging over me, I poured my energies into a new project at work and received a promotion within 3 months. My coworkers also observed the change. "You seem lighter," one of them commented over a team meal. "Like you're finally breathing." They were correct. For the first time in years, I could breathe. Uncle Rob, my dependable sounding board, remained a constant presence in my life. He lifted a glass and smiled as he dined on meat. "Here's to you, kid, for finally learning how to say no." I chuckled, but his words stayed with me. Saying no had been the most difficult thing I'd ever done, but it was also the most important. Melissa, unsurprisingly, continued to play the victim. According to what I heard, she was still living at my parents' house, relying on them for assistance, and avoiding responsibility. Mom and Dad became increasingly frustrated, but their pride prevented them from acknowledging they had made a mistake. The true surprise came from Ellie. One afternoon, she called me from her mother's phone. "Uncle John," she spoke softly. "Can I come visit you? Mom says you're mad at us, but I miss you." Hearing her voice made my heart break a little. However, it also gave me hope. "Of course, you are welcome to visit," I replied kindly. "You're always welcome here." She came over the following weekend, and we spent the day baking cookies, watching movies, and discussing school. She hugged me goodbye and whispered, "Thanks for being my favorite uncle." That moment reminded me why I had battled so hard to establish boundaries. It wasn't just about protecting myself. I wanted to show Ellie what self-respect looked like. The lesson I learned was simple, yet deep. Standing up for oneself is not selfish. It is important. Family does not imply being a doormat. It denotes respect, support, and mutual caring. And if such things are missing, it is acceptable to walk away. The distance from my family was difficult, but it provided me the opportunity to create a life I could be proud of. I wasn't simply surviving anymore. I was thriving. For the first time in years, I felt like I was right where I was supposed to be. One evening, as I stood on my balcony, watching the sunset, I understood something important. I hadn't lost a family. I had regained myself. And that was a trade I would gladly make again.